Reddit is built on communities, millions of them, places where people gather around hobbies, advice, jokes, and shared experiences. But not all communities are harmless. Some are strange, some are disturbing, and a few feel like you're watching something you shouldn't be watching at all. From a paranoid community convinced the government is watching them, to a subreddit filled with people that claim to see strange things in their skin. These are some disturbing Reddit communities. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. r/Morgellons. Almost every disturbing subreddit has a signature image. For r/Morgellons, it's the fibers. And yeah, literally fibers. Tiny thread-like strands coming out of people's skin, red, blue, black, completely unexplainable. Some say they itch. Some say they burn. Some say they feel like they're moving in their skin. It's the feeling of something being there, something that shouldn't be, and no matter what they do, they can't get rid of it. They can see them, and they can feel them, but the moment they go to a doctor or try to take a photo, they're gone. If you open up the subreddit, you can see hundreds of posts of users speaking with confidence, investigating like doctors as they measure, catalog, and compare. Some claim the fibers move. Others say they react to heat, light, or chemicals. A few even say that they saw them moving with their own eyes. And what makes it even more unsettling is how normal their writing feels. They aren't chaotic rants you would expect from someone going through extreme psychological distress. They're calm, methodical. A user might describe himself spending hours extracting fibers with tweezers, only to do it again the next day, and the sensation never stops. Another user talks about losing their whole life to something no one else can see or feel. r/Morgellons is a record of a very real illness, of strangers suffering, and a place of suffering shared. But abstract descriptions only go so far. To really understand, you have to dive into one of the most popular posts on the subreddit. This is the experience of u/SevereWolverine8622. In their own words, a personal letter to my family, doctors, the CDC, and the world. Let's get into the post. The user reads, "Let me make one thing very clear. After 9 long years of being laughed at, talked about, dismissed, misdiagnosed, and labeled crazy, after being abandoned by my friends, my doctors, and even my own family, I am no longer just fighting symptoms. I am now fighting for my life. I recently found out about Lyme carditis, an infection that can affect the heart. It causes fluid buildup around the heart, and suddenly, everything started making sense. That's what's happening to me now, and it makes me wonder, how many others have died from this, completely unaware? How many deaths have been labeled as heart failure, mental illness, or ODing when the root cause was a hidden infection, one that medical professionals ignored or didn't even bother to look for? It's disturbing. And I need to know, if I die from this, I know exactly what they'll blame it on, and it won't be the truth. That's why I'm speaking up now, because I've been watching my body fail me, and still, I'm being dismissed like I don't matter. Like we don't matter. I don't know why the CDC refuses to take this seriously. Why are so many of us being brushed off as mentally ill or drug addicts? Sometimes it feels like they just want us to disappear, but we won't. I am convinced this illness is not just being spread by ticks. There are tiny flies, the kind you can barely see, that people call by a dozen names: no-see-ums, sandflies, biting midges, fruit flies, mold flies, but they're all just different names for the same tiny biting insect. And I believe they are carrying Lyme, Morgellons, and co-infections to more people than we realize. I believe they are infecting not just humans, but animals too. I have lost 2 of my dogs to this, and my current dogs are also sick. If your dog starts walking in circles, staring at walls like they're in a trance, or acting like they're seeing something you can't, I'm begging you, don't dismiss it. They're being infected too. We are living in a world where even the meat we eat and the milk we drink could be coming from infected livestock. We are all at risk, every one of us. Now I want to talk to my family, to my children. Do you think I ever wanted to live this way? Do you think the social, confident, loving woman you knew would just become this isolated, exhausted, low self-esteem shell for no reason? Me either. But I woke up one day and I lost everything. Not because I went crazy, not because I gave up, because I got sick, because I was bitten and my life changed forever. Can someone really go to bed sane one night and wake up mentally ill the next morning? That sounds ridiculous, and you know it. You were all younger when it started, but you were old enough to know better. And then the OP mentions a name, saying, you especially, you knew the truth. You would sneak and call me. You defended me. You told me you loved me and that you knew they were wrong about me. But over the years, you forgot me. You let people convince you that I was someone I'm not. That broke me. But I don't blame you. I just wish you all knew me better, like I always thought you did. You're grown up now, wiser, I hope. So why won't you stop being so one-sided? Why won't you slow down and open your heart back up? Why do you all look down on me like I'm just some annoying, desperate woman? I wasn't always like this. I used to be the mother who cooked for you, cheered for you, spoiled you with gifts, protected you, loved you, and now I'm begging just to be believed. Maybe I've been dramatic. Maybe I repeat myself too much. But did it ever occur to you that maybe I'm just trying to be heard? That I'm desperate because I still love you and I need you more than ever? You don't know what it's like to be left alone with a body that's failing, to be laughed at behind your back, while your heart struggles to beat and your lungs gasp for breath. I've lost my hair. My skin has sores and scars. I've watched my body change into something I don't even recognize. I've lost my home, my income, my relationships, and almost all of my hope. And yet I'm still here, still trying, still fighting for you, still loving you. But the scariest part is, this time feels different. I can feel my body giving up. The signals are there. My organs are struggling. I can't breathe. And this time, I have no one. No one to call, no one to hold my hand, no one to tell me it's okay. And I've made peace with my death because it's a part of life. But what hurts most is knowing that I might die still being misunderstood by the people I love the most. That is the cruelest part of all. Now, for anyone listening, if you've ever called someone delusional for talking about Lyme, Morgellons, or co-infections, you better start paying attention. There are millions of people suffering, and we are growing in number every single year. More than 476,000 new cases of Lyme disease are estimated annually in the US. Some studies suggest over 1 million people may suffer from Morgellons. The most go undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. That's more than breast cancer, more than the flu in some years. If Morgellons were truly a mental disease, then explain why the number of people with nearly identical symptoms is spiking globally. The truth is, we don't have a mental illness epidemic, we have a vector-borne epidemic, and doctors are too undertrained or too biased to see what's in front of them. If ticks were the only cause, we'd need entire armies of ticks to explain how fast this is spreading. It doesn't add up unless you accept the truth. It's being spread by other vectors too. The bacteria behind Lyme and Morgellons, and then the OP lists 3 sort of bacterias. I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. And then they say, don't just cause rashes or joint pain. They invade your organs, including your brain and heart. They cause hallucinations, neurological decline, cardiac symptoms, hair loss, skin lesions, immune collapse. These aren't rare symptoms, they're patterns. Patterns shared by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people across Reddit, YouTube, forums, and survivor groups. So if you think your loved one is crazy, maybe the crazy thing is how willfully ignorant you've been. Take one moment out of your busy day and look it up. Watch a YouTube testimony. Read a Reddit thread. Research what people are saying about Morgellons and Lyme. You'll see our stories are the same. Our pain is real. Our deaths silent. Stories like these are real. The people who write these are not playing a role or chasing attention. The pain and the fear, the constant conviction that something is wrong with their body is not invented. Whatever Morgellons ultimately is, the suffering described in these posts seems genuine. So what does science say? Morgellons is not well understood, but generally, doctors believe that is a form of delusional parasitosis, a mental disorder in which individuals truly think that they are being infested with parasites, insects, or other foreign objects when in reality, there is nothing. The main evidence for the theory that there is actually something growing in their skin is a set of papers that describe findings of keratin and collagen proteins that make up most of your body, like your bones and muscles, in skin samples in a small group of patients. However, most of these papers came from a single group of investigators. Furthermore, the CDC conducted much bigger studies and they found out that it was mostly just cellulose that came from cotton clothes, and there was no evidence of infection. The very first case was recorded in 2001 by a woman named Mary Leitao. Her 2-year-old son had sores and started complaining of bugs, so Leitao examined them with a tiny microscope and found red, blue, black, and white fibers growing out of his skin. She took him to 8 different doctors. None of them could find anything wrong. Even Fred Heldrich, a pediatrician who solved mystery cases, found nothing wrong and instead suggested that Mary herself get a psychiatric evaluation and support. Another specialist thought that she had Mucosins by proxy, a syndrome where a parent pretends a child is sick or even makes their child sick to get attention from doctors. Several others shared this opinion as well. According to her, she grew accustomed to being doubted by her doctors, and her son still suffered from growing sores. A year later, she founded the Morgellons Research Foundation to raise awareness and funding for research into a poorly understood illness, which can be disfiguring and disabling, according to her. Since then, there have been many studies on this, and no results. The absence of scientific proof doesn't mean nothing is happening to them. While there's no evidence, no clear treatment, and mostly dismissed by doctors, people don't stop suffering. They look elsewhere for answers, and r/Morgellons exists in that gap, a sort of support group for a mysterious illness, whether mental or physical. Until there's a better explanation, these disturbing posts will continue to be posted as people look for desperate measures. And I mean, I first came across this and was just blown away. I'm like, people are finding fibers in their skins, like literally fibers. And yes, I mean, people are not alone on this. There's a ton of people finding fibers in their skin. It is definitely a very weird rabbit hole to go down. r/targeted energy weapons. If you watched my video on gang stalking, this subreddit, the people, and its stories will sound very, very familiar. After exploring the anguish and pain that fills r/Morgellons, some of you might think that we've reached the edge of the disturbing fringe world. But for many Redditors, that was only the beginning. There is another community that picks up where Morgellons left, but this time with a clear certainty. The people here are definitely off their rocker. Welcome to r/targeted energy weapons, and that name is just wild as is. It's a hub for people who think electromagnetic waves, microwave beams, and other forms of directed energy, also known as light, are being harnessed against them. Posts often treat these outlandish claims as being entirely factual, linking back to past discussions of military technology and claiming stalking and harassment through invisible weapons. Members exchanged theories about how the government could attack them, and more importantly, how they can protect themselves. To be fair, directed energy weapons do exist in military research, but their documented applications are so dramatically different from the scenarios described on this subreddit that it might make you think they're joking. Instead, open the comments to find the Redditors are entirely serious. Buried beneath all of the technical language and references to the military are posts that make a huge leap from ordinary sensations to proof of an invisible, personalized attack. Direct energy weapons, by the way, the real ones, are extremely expensive to use. And this post assumes that such technology is being deployed casually, constantly, and with perfect position against this one Redditor. This is the story of user Tired Old Man 67. The title of the post reads as follows: My history with being attacked by energy weapons. And the post reads as follows, saying, I'm new to Reddit, so I'm just starting to post. My history is, the stalking started in 1993. The directed energy attacks started in 1997. The main purpose of using the directed energy attacks was to force sleep deprivation. They would blast my apartment, and I was getting maybe 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. It destroyed my career. I was a computer programmer at the time. I was forced to move several times, but they would always show up and start the attacks again. And then he mentions a name, saying, was very active back then in victim support. I contacted her and joined her group, Citizens Against Human Rights Abuse, which she later named Mind Justice. We even held a rally in Sacramento, California at the Capitol building. About 20 people showed up, but nothing helped stop the attacks. My contacts for her no longer work. Does anyone know if she is okay? For context, the lady is the founder of Mind Justice, a nonprofit organization supposedly focused on preventing non-consensual testing of new weapons that target the mind and nervous system. Since I was getting attacked in my apartment I became homeless in 2001 and lived in my pickup. I stayed mostly at the state campgrounds and places that allowed overnight parking. Kinko's was great for that, and gas was affordable back then. I got low-paying jobs to try and pay the bills. I finally tried renting a room in a house. I looked out and found a room in a house owned by a very nice older lady and was able to live there 18 years before she passed away from old age. I did not have any directed energy attacks during that time. I was still working low-paying jobs, but because my expenses were so low, I was able to save money over time and was able to buy a house. A fixer-upper for sure. I've lived here for a year and a half without problem until February of this year, when the attack started again. So after a 20-year break, they are attacking me again, and they are trying very hard to kill me. The attack started right away after I had been to the hospital to have my heart tested. I was having chest pains and the doctor noticed a problem in my checkup, so he had an ultrasound done on my heart. The problem was not worth having an operation for. Then the directed energy attack started again, forcing sleep deprivation and a lot of stress, loud ringing in my ears, non-stop voice transmissions, vibrating legs and feet day and night. They transmit audio into my house, giving orders that I should commit S-word. They also transmit that I have to sell my house and move to a new city of their choice in order to stop the attacks. I know they won't stop. They also demand that I pray for forgiveness. The group attacking me is very religious, or at least pretending to be very religious. I am an atheist. This was also the case with the group attacking me back in 1997 to 2001. They presented a very religious front. So now I'm back in the same sinking boat. After 20 years of no attacks, they are here again. At least they can't cause me to lose my job since I'm retired. I am old and out of shape, and the stress from this is pretty bad. There isn't any doubt that they are trying to kill me, especially using sleep deprivation on someone with a heart problem. What they really want is for me to commit S-word. That way, they get away with what is basically murder. I've already tried going to the police and the FBI, it's a complete waste of time. They write you off as a nutcase. 5150. So what's the point of posting this? At least I can get my story out there. These people think they can get away with murder, and they have been. And they don't like what they are doing being reported. So at least this is something. Before immediately dismissing their anecdote, you should know that yes, there are actually real-world examples of them. Of course, the US is at the forefront. The Department of Defense has been investing heavily into high-energy laser weapons, which aim to defeat threats like drones and missiles by focusing concentrated electromagnetic energy at them. For example, Helios, high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance, using a 60 kW high-energy laser developed by Lockheed Martin that obliterates targets by melting them out of the sky. Israel was actually one of the first to deploy such a weapon, a 100 kilowatt high-power laser system called Iron Beam that is used in real-world operations. Still, these weapons require massive power sources, sophisticated optics, and a whole military team behind them, so it is probably safe to say that it would not be used against random civilians, however important they think they are. Furthermore, they are far from invisible, shooting incredibly powerful laser beams, so you could definitely tell when you're about to be obliterated. There are no invisible versions available to the public, anyway, and none known to be used publicly either. But yeah, this is just a hell of a subreddit to join. I mean, there is a lot of people who think the government is, like the subreddit title says, using lasers against them. It is just crazy. Yeah, targeted energy weapons. It is just a wild, wild subreddit. And it blew me away with how many people believe they're being targeted. I just didn't know there was that many people out there that truly believe this. r/runaway. After moving through subreddits filled with conspiracies and invisible weapons, r/runaway feels different. There's no speculation or grand explanations, only urgency. r/runaway is a subreddit where people ask how to leave their old lives behind. Many of them are minors. Many of them come from abusive households. Most of them are trying to make a decision that could permanently alter their lives. Scroll through the posts and you can find a window into desperate situations. I can't stay here. I don't feel safe. I don't know what to do, is the familiar title you can see. They are moments of crisis engraved in posts as they cry out for help to strangers to survive a situation they often can't fully understand. It's not disturbing because of its extremeness like our previous topics, but how real it feels. It sits at a strange intersection between protection and danger, especially when kids are involved. Running away to try and survive on the streets is extremely dangerous. But when there's no safe place left to go, what does it matter? Most of the subreddit is filled with questions, but sometimes the posts on r/runaway aren't written in fear or what might happen. They're written after it already has. This is where it takes a totally different tone. Written like survival reports, they offer a gritty view into life on the street of people desperate enough to run away from relative safety to a cruel outside world for the sake of freedom. This is the account of user HAFSA3X, a 16-year-old runaway. The post is titled "How I Ran Away at 16," and it reads as follows. I started planning on running away in late January of this year and ended up meeting two other girls from the subreddit around my age who were also planning to run away. Our states were also right next to each other, so we figured it'd be easy enough to get to know each other. We FaceTimed and came up with a plan and made a list of everything we would need, like money, important documents, hygienic things, food, pepper spray, etc. None of us were planning on coming back or getting caught, as we were all leaving extremely toxic households, so we planned for the future. We found jobs we could get on Craigslist while we were still minors, researched cheap motels, and found shelters that would take in minors around the area we were planning on staying at for a while just in case. We all agreed that I would leave my state first by bus, Minnesota to Chicago, where I would pick up one of the girls and we'd continue on to the next state to pick up the last girl, who's 15, if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't able to ride the certain bus we were riding because of that. I've been to Chicago before and have family members there, so I knew that if everything went to hell, I'd at least have people to fall back on. We looked up and wrote down the stores that would be around where the bus would drop me off. The plan was for me to go into the CVS and buy a prepaid card and hair dye. I had over $1,000 with me from saving up, and the others were also bringing money, so money wasn't going to be an issue for a while. I would use the card to order an Uber to the first girl's house to pick her up and take her back to the bus station where I was. There, we would go into a bathroom and cut and dye our hair while we waited for the next bus to come take us to the next state over, which was the state the other girl lived in. I also bought a burner phone before running so that I wouldn't be tracked. Our plan was to train hop once we got to the other girl's state because of the fact that she couldn't take the bus and we knew we couldn't stay in her state or we'd definitely get caught. We had found out all the routes for certain trains in her state and where they stop and watched hella videos of people train hopping to prepare for it, even though you can't really prepare for that type of thing unless you've done it before. The day I ran away, I wrote a note explaining why I ran away and put it somewhere my parents wouldn't find immediately, but the police would find it if they searched my room or whatever to figure out what happened to me. I waited for my parents to leave the house, then I ordered an Uber to the bus station. I took with me a backpack and another small backpack with wheels. I had already ordered the ticket online and picked it up at another location, so the only thing to do was wait for the bus, which would come in a few hours. Police arrived to the station while people were boarding the bus and getting their tickets checked. Obviously, I was scared shitless because I knew they were probably there for me, but I didn't know how they were there or how they knew where I was. I tried to blend in as best as I could. Right before I was about to board the bus, one of the officers came over to me, and yeah, you can guess it, what happened after that. The police made me go home. Turns out my sister found my letter and snitched to my parents about it. She also overheard me talking on the phone about taking a bus to Chicago, which is how they knew where I'd be. Obviously, my parents were beyond livid, and I don't even want to talk about what happened when I got home because it was the most horrible experience. When I got home, I immediately ran to the bathroom and texted the other girls what had happened. They weren't able to wait for me to run again because their situations were urgent and they had to leave the next day. I know they ran away by themselves after this, but that's the last time I ever talked with them. About 3 weeks later, I ran again, this time by myself and not leaving a stupid letter. I packed the exact same things as before, but this time I wasn't going to take a bus. I basically rode my bike a few miles and paid multiple people to drive me further and further. Thankfully, none of them were creeps or anything. I was able to hitchhike my way to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I obviously had nowhere to go once I got there, and I was honestly petrified because of the fact that I was alone and I had never been to Wisconsin, so I didn't know my way around like I would of Chicago. The first night, I found a hidden area to sleep in. I saw other homeless people on the ground, and at first thought maybe I should just sleep on the ground next to them and blend in, but immediately realized that was the stupidest shit ever. I knew I should keep my distance and not trust anyone, or it would probably result in me getting beaten, R-worded, or worse, killed. I stayed in that city for about 2 weeks. I found a place to hide my bag in during the day so I wouldn't be walking around with a huge backpack looking suspicious, and only kept with me very important things. I hung out at the mall and library during the day and returned to my hidden area during the night. I wasn't really scared of getting caught because I cut and dyed my hair and pierced my nose before I left, so I didn't really fit the description my parents probably gave to the police. I also made sure to return to the hidden spot where I slept a few hours before the night set in because I didn't want to be walking around at night and I didn't want to take any chances in someone following me. After the 2 weeks, I hitchhiked to Michigan because I knew I couldn't stay in one spot for very long and knew I needed to get further from my state. While doing this, I encountered some very weird men who were willing to give me a ride all the way there, and I honestly just trusted my gut to not go with them and made it to a city called Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan safely. I was really rationing the cans of food I had brought from home because I didn't want to spend any money on food, and I was honestly starving at one point, but I knew I needed the money to last as long as I could. I stayed in the city for one night and almost got robbed. Luckily, I'm a fast runner. The next day, I tried to convince an old man to give me a ride on his boat to cross the lake. It was the only way to get to the other side of Michigan, but he denied, so I snuck into the bottom of the boat before he got in, and all I know is we passed by a city called Sarnia and ended up in Lake St. Clair, then ended up in Detroit. When he stopped the boat, I ran out before he had time to stop me, and I kept running for like 10 minutes straight until I was sure he hadn't been running after me. I stayed in Detroit for about a month and had the craziest encounters, but I just kept a very low profile and always had my guard up. I left Michigan to another state after that. Not going to specify where because I'm currently in that state, and I've been there for the past few months. I'm still a runaway, and I'm currently staying with a group of runaway teenagers around my age. I've been approached by many groups before, but this was the only group that didn't give me a bad feeling, and so far, everything's been alright. I haven't been found by the police yet, and my 17th birthday is tomorrow, the 27th. We do download jobs from Craigslist and other places to earn money, and we sleep in abandoned places. My plan is to stay on the streets for the next year until I turn 18, then I'll start getting my life together. I have all of my important documents, so I'll be able to just get a job and stuff when I turn 18. As of right now, I've been on the streets for about 6 months, and that has been long enough for me to figure out what and what not to do, so I'm like 100% sure I can last until I'm of age. When you step back from this story, you notice how normality collapses. They're left with a backpack, burner phone, and a checklist, sleeping anywhere they could find, curbing their hunger and doing odd jobs. It's routine for them now. This shift is what makes it so disturbing. Think of what any child would be doing at this age. Think of what you were doing at this age. This person ran away from their parents, managed to leave the state and escape the police. Independently, they began to build their new life, all at just 16 years old, all on their own. It is up to you to decide whether the newfound freedom is worth the risk. In reality, this subreddit is not a celebration of escape. It's about how disturbing some people's lives are, and the only way to escape them is to become homeless. And also, quick side note, on this subreddit, there is a ton of posts of people almost being kidnapped or kidnapped by creepers pretending to try and help these young people that have nowhere left to go. And that is just even scarier. I mean, imagine you have nowhere else to go, you're escaping harm, and you end up homeless, and you end up trusting someone who takes advantage of you in a sinister way. I mean, there is so many posts about this on here. It's just a very disturbing community and just hopeless. That's just the best way to sum it up. And like I said in the beginning, it feels so real, and that's what makes it so disturbing. And it's disturbing that these people have nowhere left to go, especially young teenagers. Super, super sad. r/humanoid encounters. Imagine locking eyes with someone who looks human, almost human, but something about them just feels wrong. Not a monster, not some dramatic story, but just off. The kind of wrongness you can't explain without sounding crazy. The kind that lingers long after the moment passes. Maybe it's the way they move. Maybe it's their eyes. Maybe it's the unsettling certainty that whatever you're looking at isn't quite what it's pretending to be. That uneasy space is where r/humanoid encounters lives. This isn't a place for fiction or creative writing prompts. It's a collection of first-hand accounts from people who are convinced they saw something they weren't meant to. Figures in forests, shapes near water, beings that vanish too cleanly to be a coincidence. And once you've seen something like that, the rational explanations never fully stick. There's always the thought that you can't shake. What if it was real? Among the posts are descriptions that range from strange to deeply disturbing. Small figures, towering forms with missing features, and encounters that leave behind physical injuries to these OPs. But the post we're reading isn't about some crazy creature. It's about a strange person, or humanoid as the subreddit is titled, that the person encountered. And the user, Shugazi, shares an account of two women who walked into a coffee shop in Charleston, South Carolina, and left behind a feeling that still hasn't faded. A woman who looked normal at first glance, but to the OP, seemed quite humanoid. And the post is titled, "Has anyone else encountered people that didn't seem to actually be people?" And the OP's post reads as follows: "I was wondering if anyone else has also had any experiences with people that didn't quite seem to be people. Like there was something off about them. I had an experience some time ago that I've never been able to shake off. So this happened in Charleston, South Carolina around Christmas of 2017. I used to work at a popular coffee shop that was inside of a popular big box retail store. One day around Christmas time, I had two guests that struck me as odd immediately. They were a pale Caucasian woman, probably mid-20s, that both looked nearly identical, but one was about a head taller. They had the exact same haircut, very straight platinum blonde bowl-like cuts. Their faces were quite round, and their eyes were a noticeably bright hazel color and appeared quite large, but not in like a disproportionate gray alien kind of way. They both also had a fairly odd stiff gait, as though they had a board strapped to their back. They sort of shuffled their feet around when they walked. They both also had an oversized sweaters, and I noticed later the shorter one had theirs on backwards. The weird part was their behavior. When they first walked in, the shorter one looked around the store as if they'd never been in one. Her overall demeanor was somewhat childlike, like a good customer service rep. I welcomed them in and told them to ask if they had any questions. The short girl looked to the taller one as if for approval. She then slowly nodded her head towards me, mouth slightly agape, and then attempted a hand wave. Instead of waving at the wrist like most people, she waves with her forearm, palm flat and straight in a sort of robotic windshield wiper-like motion. She then turns to the taller one, who gives her an encouraging nod. They then proceed to walk around the cafe, looking at the cups and merchandise. The short girl would often point all around the store and seem to be asking the taller one questions, almost as if this was a guided tour of sorts. Now, obviously, I'm no linguist, but my city is a fairly popular tourist destination, and I've met foreigners from all over the globe. Even if I don't recognize a specific language, I can usually estimate roundabout where it may be from, whether it's Germanic, Slavic, Middle Eastern, etc. in origin. But the language they spoke to each other was very strange, and not like ones I've heard before. Imagine if you mixed Simlish with Baby Babel and sped it up. Lots of guh, blah, and ooh sounds. They continued on checking out the merchandise and going on what seemed to be a Q&A session. They would often open up cups and look inside, grab bags of beans and squeeze and shake them. At one point, the shorter one took apart a French press, and the taller one seemed to try and explain what it was for. This went on for another 10 minutes or so, when the short one picked out a studded cup to purchase. She shuffles her way to the POS, puts the cup on the counter, frequently looking towards her friend as if looking for reassurance, who again does a simple nod and encouragement. She then looks towards me and attempts to smile, which was just baring her perfectly straight white top teeth as though she was biting her bottom lip, and slowly nodding, not saying a word. It was here I noticed her sweater was on backwards, the tag sticking out in front of her neck. Now that I had a good look, I will say she was quite oddly attractive, but there was something about her appearance that gave me an uncanny valley vibes, but I couldn't tell you what exactly was off. I will say I don't recall them ever blinking. I scanned the cup and went on the typical checkout spiel, to which there was no reply. When it was time to pay, she pulled out a silver credit card that had no markings whatsoever. No logos, no numbers, no name, just blank plastic with a chip. She then looks back over to the taller one and says something, who then comes over and finishes the transaction for her, showing her as though it was a teaching moment. I hand her the cup and she once again slowly nods her head, mouth ajar, and does her windshield wiper wave. Then they shuffle their way out of the cafe into the rest of the store and I never saw them again. I've told this story to people before, and they usually hand wave it away and say they were probably just tourists from Europe. I just think that's fucking hilarious. Like, whoever the OP is told, his friends or whatever, they're just like, oh yeah, you know, European people, they're like fucking aliens, bro. They don't even know how to like move their body. I just think that's hilarious how they're just like, Europe. People from Europe, they're wild. They're super weird. I don't know. I just thought that's funny. Or maybe they had a condition of sorts. That's understandable. But like I've said, I've encountered many foreigners and none of them acted this much like a fish out of water, nor was their overall demeanor and behavior this uncanny. I won't rule it out as a possibility, of course, but it just doesn't quite sit satisfactory for me. It was just too weird. I don't know. What do you guys think? Have any of you experienced anything similar? And then the OP makes a edit saying, first of all, I never anticipated this post blowing up like this. Thank you all for the awards, stories, and theories you're sharing. This has been a fun ride. I appreciate you all. I mostly want to reiterate and expound on a few points. When typing this out, I initially wanted to try and make sure I didn't use any specific language that would lead on any particular conclusion, despite my personal view on the situation. I wanted to keep it as neutral as possible and allow room for speculation and discussion amongst y'all, i.e., I didn't want to come out and say, yeah, they were totally aliens, when there could have been another explanation. But I think in doing so, I undersold how weird the situation really was and why I felt it was worth sharing. So here's a few slightly more in-depth details. I mentioned how they were practically identical. They were exact age, exact complexion, exact hairstyle, exact same overall presence and demeanor. There were only 4 differences I noticed: their height, the sweaters they were wearing, the taller one's nose was slightly more sharp and angular, and the shorter one's speech was faster. I've seen people mention that they were a mother/daughter or caretaker/patient situation, which is simply not possible unless they reproduced by mitosis. Twin sisters? For sure, that could work. I mentioned that their eyes seemed big. I know I said it wasn't as disproportionate as a gray alien, which is true, but I should have emphasized that they still appeared much bigger than they should have been. I mentioned in a comment below that their skin was absolutely flawless and clear. No scars, creases, blemishes. I couldn't even make out any visible pores, like wearing an Instagram filter almost. Their complexion had almost ethereal quality to it. I mentioned how they would point around the store and seemed to be doing a Q&A. I should have emphasized that they pointed at nearly everything, from the signs on the board, the equipment behind the counter, the shopping carts, even the automatic sliding door at the front of the store. It really reinforced the idea, the short one at least, hasn't seen a place like this before. As for the autism angle I've seen mentioned, I've already made a comment below, but in short, I never got the impression that this was the case. I've met and interacted with plenty of people on the spectrum before, language barrier or not, and not once had any of them made me think, yeah, I'm not sure if this person is human. This situation was different. That said, due to the nature of autism, there is always the possibility I'm wrong. And that's about all I feel needs any more emphasizing at the moment. I might update again if I see another point I feel should be reiterated. Very late update. I came across this image online just now and nearly shit my pants. Give this lady a bowl cut and make the chin rounder, and it's basically an exact match to the ladies I saw that day. And then he attaches a picture of this lady. I'm unsure if it's photoshopped or not, but it's pretty, uncanny. And then the OP says, it should be worth noting that the original image is attributed to a Photoshop artist from back in 2014 or so, but since then it has been to spread by UFO enthusiasts as a mock-up of a Pleiadian, which I don't think was ever the original artist's intention. Nevertheless, the resemblance was just so uncanny, I had to share. And r/humanoid encounters is filled with similar encounters like this, whether it's someone like that, very uncanny, or skinwalker encounters or Wendigo encounters of all these things. And the subreddit is not meant for fictional accounts, so I just have to kind of believe a lot of these people. I mean, there definitely could be something out there. But what do you guys think? Do you think there's humanoids out around us? Or these guys are just a little bit cuckoo, like some of the previous subreddits we got into. But these subreddits are super interesting, and this was the first installment of the Disturbing Reddit Communities. Would you like to see another installment in this series, or would you not? And did you enjoy this video? If you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Instagram, follow me on Spotify. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos in the future. And comment down below what subreddit you thought was most interesting. I thought r/targeted energy weapons was just the craziest, but what was yours? And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some unexplainable true 4chan threads. And in today's video, we're diving into some amazing 4chan threads. Like, these are some of the best 4chan stories I have ever read, period. So you'll want to stick around, and I just want to say thank you so much for stopping by. It means the world. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. The channel's goal is 1 million subscribers, so it helps a ton, and I just love for you to join the community. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Spotify, all that jazz. And yeah, these stories will be unexplainable, horrifying, weird, scary, and all that stuff, but you'll definitely want to stick around. And without further ado, let's get into some unexplainable true 4chan threads. This is long, and I'm long-winded. Sorry, X. 2.5 years ago, I moved to Bloomington, Indiana. I'd recently decided to start anew. My grandfather had died and left me $15,000, and the only friend I had outside of Texas lived there. I didn't want to live in that god-awful oven of a state anymore, so Indiana seemed as good of a place as any, really. When I first got here, I moved in with my friend, who I'd known since early childhood. We dated a while back, broken things off, and become friends again. I didn't want to stay in that cramped apartment forever with her and her 2 girly girl roommates, so I quickly began looking for a piece of property to call my own. See, I wanted to raise goats eventually. I looked everywhere, hoping to do a lease purchase. I eventually found an older, early 1900s, late 1800s house about 20 minutes from town that sat comfortably on 23 acres of land and had an owner very willing to do a deal. It needed work, but came with an older barn, and it was a steal at the price it was offered at. I gave the woman who owned it $10,000, signed a lease purchase, and moved in a few weeks later. A week after me, my friend moved in. It was cheaper living with me than in her apartment. This was about 2 years ago. Picture unrelated. Immediately, we noticed some odd things. The woman we bought it from, who lives about 3 miles from here and we're now sort of friends with, wouldn't tell us much about the history of the house. Only that it was old, had been vacant for 2 years, and that it was 100% as is. She also would not go in the house more than necessary, nor would she walk the back 15 acres with us, which is all woods, or go into the barn. The few neighbors who had been there for more than a few years were a bit surprised we bought the place, but weren't as freaked out about it as the prior owner. I assumed it was because of all the work the property needed. There were 2 broken windows, most of the doors jammed, it needed some new wiring, 1 step was broken in the stairs, etc. Within a month, the place looked brand new. We shined the hardwood floors, painted the walls, replaced broken windows, and fixed the doors. It looked like a historical home. There were some oddities though. Like I said, first I noted that the attic's walls were 100% unfinished, aside from a few barely hanging panels of drywall. Yet the steps in the floor were carpeted, and someone had wired the upstairs for cable and telephone. We don't get cable out here, so why someone would do that, I don't know. One of the drywall panels had a drawing from a children's book from the 1960s or so, I'd say, nailed to it, and it had been colored over. It wasn't anything creepy and looked like it was from Alice in Wonderland, and the child had just filled in the lines. The original drawing was black and white. However, it was nailed to a much newer piece of drywall, 4 to 5 years old, and there had been no children in the house for much longer than that. The board also had ripped edges from other drawings on it and several children's handprints in blue and pink paint. I didn't think much of it at the time and still don't classify it as 100% paranormal. Strangely, the attic's lights, it had several, did not work. In the crawl space in it, there were 2 that I found immediately, did not have floors, just drywall covered in carpet, which I really found fucking bizarre. This also killed me because I crawled in one and almost fell through the ceiling. The attic soon became my project, especially as winter set in and the house became drafty. I was 100% convinced at the time it was the attic. I ripped up the carpet first. The carpet did not have padding under most of it, only about half the attic, and there were unfinished hardwood floors beneath it. Under the side that didn't have padding, there were what looked like chalk lines under the carpet on the wood, but they'd gotten smeared over the years, and I assumed the same children who left me the handprints and drawing had played with chalk one day. Now, I just find that sort of unnerving. I then went about finishing the floors in the crawl space and repairing the damage I did when I almost fell through and wiring the attic properly. I didn't know it didn't have lights until I tried working up there after dark one night and the lights wouldn't come on. To do that, I removed most of the drywall, as I wanted a few plugs up there. This didn't include the board with the handprints. Now, it's worth noting that I can't smell shit. I grew up on a farm, and I've smelled blood, rot, and feces regularly since I was born. Unless an odor's truly overpowering, it just doesn't really bother me. Until I was done with the wiring, my roommate hadn't ever been up in the attic. When she went up there once, she immediately told me something smelled and tracked the odor down to a piece of drywall with the handprints/drawing. I humored her, removed it, and was unpleasantly surprised by what I found. A dead, rotting cat. It hadn't been there more than a couple months, although the attic had been sealed. No openings large enough for a cat. The only door up to it had been closed. I didn't think much of it though, and threw the cat out. After scrubbing the space, I replaced the drywall, finished the walls, and considered it a day. My bedroom is unfortunately located when you go up the stairs. If you turn up left, you come to my door within a few feet. My room's the biggest, about 40% of the upstairs living area. Unfortunately, it also has the only door to the attic in it. If you go the entire length of my room, you come to a small hall at the end. And if you turn left again, you've got my attic. It's hard to describe, really. This unnerved me a little, especially after I began hearing thumping noises above me, usually at night. At first, I assumed it was a rat or something of the sort. Come in for the winter. I'd never heard the noise before then. After it got bad one night, it sounded like something was hopping around up there and getting into the things I'd stored there. I went up there to see if I could find the little bugger's nest. I knew it wasn't the walls, as I had just recently put most of them in. I checked the floor, even ripping up one board, which looked damaged. Nothing but dust and a few marbles. I assumed the children who'd surely been up there lost them in the floor somehow. Eventually, I began checking the walls for any hollow spots after the noises got progressively louder. Eventually, I found one behind the only piece of drywall I hadn't replaced. Behind it was another crawl space, this one finished with a floor. I didn't find anything in it, nowhere for the rat or whatever to hide. However, it was abnormally cold. Despite having only one external wall, we're talking a good 20 Fahrenheit lower than my mid 40s/50s attic. It was like I'd stepped outside. I added an access, put up rat traps, and forgot about it. I never caught a rat, nor did I ever find animal droppings. The noises continued, getting louder as winter went on, until it sounded like there was a party going on upstairs. When spring came, the noises got less intense, a thump or two every night, but that was it. I got used to it, and I never mentioned it to my roommate, who apparently didn't hear the noises. She never complained about it. The crawl space, however, remained cold and unnerving. Even in the summer, the crawl space was much cooler than my air-conditioned home. It was not the only cold spot, nor the only one I had direct contact with. The second cold spot was my closet. When we first moved in, I noticed how much colder it was than the rest of the house, a good 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and that it had a light, musty smell that even I could notice. I stored boxes and records in it, and nothing else. I decided to air it out and left it open one morning, only to find it closed when I got home. After repeating the cycle 2 or 3 more times, I asked my roommate to stop closing the door. She claimed she hadn't been in the room and didn't know what I was talking about. I found it creepy, but brushed it aside. I began leaving it open at night, but found it hard to sleep. When I did finally fall asleep, I'd awake to it being closed again. I stopped trying. The third cold spot was located in the empty third bedroom and was dead center in the middle of the room. It was the least intense but very noticeable, and you'd walk across the room and feel it. We have 4 dogs and 2 cats in the house, and all the animals refused to go in that room. Despite it being bigger than my roommate's room and having a much larger closet, she didn't pick it when we moved in, instead picking the smaller room that shared a wall with my snoring ass. I think we were all bothered by that room. In mid-spring, we got another roommate, a kid I'd met online who was getting kicked out and I felt bad for. He took up the empty third bedroom, under the crawl space. Not long after that, my first roommate, F for now on, to avoid confusion with the new guy, N, got a boyfriend, T, who began to stay over more. Immediately, N began to complain about the cold spot and how it was poor installation. He also complained how his dog didn't like to be in his room and blamed that on the cold. He went out of his way, even in the summer, to make it warmer in his room. While it'd be hotter than hell in 90% of his room, if you stood in the cold spot, you'd still feel it. He also began complaining of a tapping noise in the ceiling, which he said sounded like fingers rapping on a desk, and blamed on a rat. I was glad someone else heard the invisible rat and tried in earnest to find the fucker again. We still never found it. Meanwhile, I bought 11 more acres from a neighbor, directly behind my property. This was largely woods, with a small stream running through it. By now, I was trying to fence in my property so I could bring my horses. I'd bought a few over the spring, home, and let my 2 pet goats out of their stall in the barn. Our first summer in the house was in full swing. The barn was another thing of interest. When we moved in, the barn was filthy. The stalls, 5 of them, and built-in run in were filled with feces, horse, cow, muck, and trash. 2 stalls were full of horse tack, buckets, bags of trash, etc. Apparently, about a year before we moved in, the barn had been rented out to someone with 5 horses. They'd left in a hurry. We assumed back rent, and hadn't cleaned anything before they left, and had left all their tack. What we first assumed was a treasure trove of unclaimed belongings soon just became a hassle, and abnormally thick, literally an inch in some places. Layer of dust was over everything, making it so we couldn't even tell what most of it was before we cleaned it. It took so long to clean things, and so much of it was trash, that a lot of things just went into the trash. We did get some very nice bridles and a saddle out of the mess, which we thought was odd. The stalls were cleaned, and the main room was also cleaned. The main room also had the thick dust, which was actually worse. We first thought it had a dirt floor until we discovered it was stone underneath. The stones/bricks were very old and very dirty. Some had numbers and letters carved into them. Eventually, we got 2 goats, which we kept in one of the stalls. The rest of the barn remained empty, and as I said before, there was no fencing. While working on the fencing, we began to notice our progress was being hindered. We'd put in 24 poles a day, woke up the next morning, and a quarter of them would be knocked over, laying sometimes feet away from the holes. We assumed it was just pranksters and went on regardless. Soon, we had the actual wire up. It was then that we realized whatever was destroying the fence was a determined motherfucker. We'd come out one morning and entire sections of wire would be broken, meaning we'd have to redo hours of work. It was then that T, my main helper for the fence, said roughly the following. Probably not an exact quote, but it goes as follows. "It's gotta be kids. It's not like deer are doing this. I've never even seen a fucking deer out here." I realized then that I'd never seen any wildlife out there either. Nothing big anyway. Our neighbors' lawns were full of deer, and we'd occasionally see one in the back acres, especially around the stream, but never anything around the barn, house, or in the fields. Not just deer either. Birds, raccoons, even dogs. Nothing ever came around. Eventually, we got the fencing up, bought the horses home, and life was normal for a while. And began acting oddly. Although he'd always been the lonely neckbeard type, this coming from a man who actually sports a neckbeard, he stopped coming out of his room, aside from using the bathroom and occasionally eating, and refused to go outside. Because of this, he stopped paying his share of the bills and his rent as he quickly ran out of money. It soon became so bad that he didn't even leave his room to walk his dog, or even let it outside. We didn't realize this until it began peeing everywhere, and he began blaming us, mostly our dogs, but he once accused T of urinating in the hall. And after a while, he was no longer talking to us. By then, F and I were both planning on kicking him out, but didn't exactly know how to word it to him, and I felt bad, as I knew he had nowhere to go. I was at work one day when I got a call from a very upset F. Apparently, she'd been showering, and upon leaving the bathroom with just a towel on, we all got used to N basically not being there and acted like he wasn't most of the time, found N right outside of the bathroom door, just staring at it. He wouldn't move to let her by, and she actually had to push him out of the way. She figured he was just being an ass, went to her room, got dressed, and went to tell him off, only to find him standing outside her bedroom door that time. He wouldn't speak to her or move again, and she was a bit worried he was up to something. She wanted me to come home. I did and asked him why he'd done that. He refused to speak, but did message me over MSN and basically told me he hadn't done it. I believe F, as she's never lied about shit like that before, and that I was an awful person because I lived in the country and had bad internet and didn't walk his dog for him. I gave him a week's notice to get out then and there. He left exactly a week later without saying anything and took all our pillowcases when he left. That really fucking ruffled my jimmies, but not as much as his room did. Oh, when I saw his room, my jimmies were as ruffled as they could get. His room was full of trash, literally piles of it. He'd also began to urinate in bottles and had snooked off onto the walls. No, I'm not kidding. We were in the process of cleaning it when we were actually attacked by an iguana that he'd brought into the house at some point and never told us about, which had been hiding under his bed. None of us ever heard from N after that, so I don't know what came of him. His room remained empty for over a year. It was about then that the actual weird shit began happening. I'd come home to find things in my room rearranged. Pencils would be taken out of my desk drawers and arranged in neat little squares. My keyboard would be stacked on top of my hard drive, which my speakers on top of it. My books would be taken out of my shelves and stacked into pyramids. This would happen if I'd left and no one else had come home while I was gone. Sometimes it would happen when I left to go to the bathroom and came right back to my room. It began happening to F and T, who soon moved in completely, as well, although to a lesser extent. Dust began returning in the barn, without any real source. We'd clean things one night, come back in the morning, only to find a thick layer of dust on everything, more than one could explain away from bedding or dirt. We don't live in a dry area, by the way. The creepiest thing to happen to me thus far came in the early fall. I built a small shed to store my tools in by the house and went out one morning, well, about 11 p.m., to find T digging through the shed. T and F both go to college, and he shouldn't have been home at the time. I asked him what he was doing, and he replied that he needed something, and kept going through the things. I noticed him leave with a pair of garden shears and a pickaxe a few minutes later, and thought nothing of it, other than he was probably high. I didn't see him for the rest of the day, until he came back from class with F. He told me he'd been at class all day long, and the reason his car hadn't moved was thanks to carpooling. One could argue he'd lied and snuck off at some point, but it really freaked me out. There's no chance in hell the guy I saw run off with my shears and pickaxe was not him. And if it wasn't, he's got an identical twin out there somewhere. I didn't see either tool again for months. Midwinter, I went out to find my shears wedged between two of the front porch boards, just hanging out. The pickaxe has yet to be found. No, I don't know what they were used for. My shears were in clean, oiled condition when they reappeared, and didn't look any different than when I'd first seen them. I never noticed any holes or trimmed bushes on my property. Not long after, we began stocking up on hay for our horses over the winter. This was before the shears reappeared. We'd never used our hayloft before, as we'd only had about 20 bales of hay at the time, which we stacked downstairs. We were busily putting hay up there with the help of some redneck friends, when F, who'd been up in the loft stacking hay, fell out one of the portholes on the side of the barn. She ended up with a badly sprung wrist, and is probably lucky that's all that happened. We assumed she'd tripped or slid, but she was horribly angry when she got down there, because she thought one of us had pushed her. Only one of my friends had been up there, and we, myself and my other friend, could both see him at the time she fell, and he was nowhere near her. To this day, she insists someone pushed her. It's worth noting that the stacking / rearranging of items was still going on at this time, and had moved on to fruit and other small items downstairs in the dining room and kitchen. We'd also begun finding stray marbles around the house. Winter hit, and it hit hard. When we got the first snow, we got a few inches of it, and caring for the horses became more of a hassle, with blanketing and such. I kept 2 chickens at the time, who had free range of my barn during the day. One evening, I went to put everyone up, and the chickens were both gone. I searched everywhere for them, and never found their bodies, blood, footprints of them, or any other animal, or even a feather. I still have not found them. By the time I got back from searching the nearby area, it was already dark out. It hadn't been when I left, so the lights in the barn had been off when I left. Now, however, they were on. I first thought that F or T had come out and turned them all on, but there was no footprints other than mine and my dog's, and I didn't see their cars in the driveway. I figured I'd done goofed, and went about my routine of putting food in stalls, cleaning up last night's shit, and filling water buckets. Now I've got a draft horse. He's big, he's fat, and you don't fuck with his feeding routine. He'll literally tear apart a barn if he doesn't get his food. and he's never late for a meal. Hell, most of my horses aren't. Not one horse was at the run-in, waiting to be led into their stalls. The goats who'd been given their food were nervous and not eating. I was worried at that point that someone had been messing around the barn and possibly stolen the chickens and maybe done something with the horses. I grabbed a ledge rope, went out into the dark and snow-covered pasture, and began calling for horses. Still, no one came. Hell, my dog hadn't even followed me out into the pasture and was staying in the barn this time. I felt very alone all of a sudden, but as if someone or something were watching me. I trudged on, jumpy but determined, and eventually found 5 very jumpy and upset horses in the back corner of the pasture. None of them wanted to come to the barn, and I literally had to drag one back. The draft horse went into his stall, only to practically run me over trying to get out a second later, and had to be pushed and prodded back into his stall. By the time everyone was up, 2 hours had gone by, and I was pretty jumpy myself. I remember seeing shapes at the edge of my limited vision. Shit gets dark in the country, and at some point, you just see shapes in the distance. But these could have been my imagination or deer. I was happy to get inside anyway. The next night, F went out with me to feed the horses. They were jumpy, but less so than the night before, although I felt like I was being watched and couldn't wait to go back to the house. F later told me that it felt thin out there that night. When she explained further, she said she thought the lines between realms were thin. She's a bit of a paranormal freak, but I can't say I didn't feel it too. Not long after, my pet goat Wally began to choke on his food. He stopped being able to eat properly, and we called a vet. The vet told us he was healthy from what we could tell, and everything checked out. I tried lots of things, from massaging his neck to patting his back while he ate, but he got no better and began to get thin. Eventually, he died. I don't know if it's related or not, but his rather sudden, it all happened in about 2 weeks, death, and how the vet couldn't explain it, bothered me. I bought a few more goats to keep my other fellow company, and forgot about it, until one of my other goats died from strangely similar symptoms a month later. I became incredibly paranoid, fearing they'd all caught some sort of horrible goat disease. Fortunately, no one else died, and the best I can explain was the dust got to them. We built a new barn in the spring. This is the 3rd winter here, so I was probably wrong about my earlier estimate of 2 years. It's been a long day. 3 makes more sense when I honestly think about it, and suffered no more deaths, as said before. The horses also began to perk up, acting less skittish in general. We no longer used the other barn. When I last went in there, the dust was back to an inch thick. We don't even store things in there, and our new barn does not have these problems. Unlike the winter before, things didn't get better with spring. New noises began popping up, including a loud hum from the pipes. A toy plane positioned atop some shelves flew off the shelves and hit me in the face when I was on the computer. The stacking intensified until it was no longer 1 to 2 stacks a day, but 3 to 4 a day. We began to admit we had a problem. By the end of spring, F and T were fighting like cats and dogs, and T eventually left. I came home one evening to find all the upstairs windows open. I was the first to come home, and nothing had been stolen. We found a marble in the garbage disposal, but not until I've been running it. We had to buy a new one. F is Jewish. I'm not religious. She suggested we get someone to bless the house, and eventually convinced her rabbi to do it. He did it, and things got better for a while. He did an entire ceremony, and the house stopped being stuffy and intimidating, like it had grown to be. The noises stopped for the most part, marbles stopped popping up, and we got only a few stacks a week. The old barn remained odd, especially at night, and occasionally we'd have to go in there to turn off the lights or close doors that had turned on themselves. We went trail riding that summer on the property, only for both our horses to spook at nothing by the stream, dump us, and run off to hide in the barn. We seriously don't know what they spooked at, and we still can't get them to go near that stream. No, it isn't water. They're fine with water if it isn't that stream. Sorry for being slow. I didn't expect anyone to read this far down. Other than a few oddities, things were better. My sister visited me for the first time at my house. We met in town once when she drove up there, but I didn't really want her knowing where my house was, and remarked that the house, quote, creeped her out. My girlfriend at the time said the same thing when she first saw the house. But like I said, things were a lot better. This winter, things have gotten bad again. It started in late November and just got worse. The noises returned in the attic, accompanied by new ones. I went to bed one night and began hearing classical music. I asked F to turn it off, and she said it wasn't her music. It stopped a few minutes later. We sometimes hear a click in the basement. F got a new boyfriend a few months back, who we'll call L. He claims something watches him from the attic, although he only first claimed this a week or two ago. F's reluctant to go upstairs, and I come home to find her sleeping on the couch sometimes. Money's tight, so we got another roommate. The first one we've had since N. They took the spare bedroom, which we kept empty, aside from furniture, and left, and told me yesterday, after only a month here, that they couldn't stay anymore and had to go. They just didn't feel comfortable here. The stacks are worse again too. I woke up this morning with the attic key in the door and the door unlocked. I always lock it when I'm done going up there, so it doesn't pop open and a dog doesn't go up there. I never leave the key in the door. I decided to try and figure out what happened and called the woman I bought the house from to talk to her. I didn't tell her we had been having any problems, and she hasn't been to the house in over a year, so she doesn't really know what's been happening. I just told her I wanted to know the history. She told me she was glad I liked the house so much because she hadn't wanted to tell me quite everything when I bought the place. Apparently, she rented it out in the 80s. She's owned it since the mid-70s and only lived in it for a few years then. She lived in it again in the 90s and rented it out in the 2000s. And her tenant ended up committing S-word by hanging in the house. In my fucking closet. There's an exposed beam in the ceiling, so I guess that's as good of a place as any. She said it like it was a joke. I don't think that's the only thing that has happened here. I don't think that explains why the barn's got so many problems or why the attic does. F's leaving, moving in with L. Says she can't handle living here. I'm tempted to agree with her and have begun looking for a new place. It's just too stressful living here. No, we didn't have some big event happen. No, we didn't have skeletons or ghosts pop out and R-word us. And Slenderman isn't haunting us. We're just tired of it. My TV randomly turns itself off at night, only to turn back on and wake me up on different channels. My window's open. It's always drafty and cold. It's 1,000 little things. No rattling chains or screaming banshees. It's just uncomfortable here. F's packing up, but says she won't leave until I've got a place to go. The new roommate, we'll call him A, plans on leaving Tuesday. I'm considering taking a job down in Kentucky, and I'm driving down there to look at a house Monday. It's new construction, and I think all my houses from now on will be. Congrats to those who finished it. Yeah, I know, it's long and boring and lacks a good end. I just thought you guys may like to read it. If you have any questions, I'll stay up and answer them. I'm not sleeping tonight anyway. Thumping's too loud. Oh, and did I mention the attic lights went out over the fall? I've tried fixing them 3 times, but they won't work anymore. And nothing I do, or the professional electrician we hired did, fixes them. And then some people start asking some questions. Someone says, have you tried leaving a sound recorder on in the paranormal hotspots overnight? I mean, if you really do have all these problems, why not just rent out another place and open this one up as like a haunted hotel tourist trap kind of thing? Just an idea. And then the OP says, oh, and to clarify one more thing, I'm in the process of selling the place. I got a real loan back in '09, and I've got about $40K paid off on the place, $10K down payment plus about $20K in payments, plus a $10K present F's rich Jewish dad gave me. I've got 2 interested parties who like it for the 33 acres, 2 barns, and historical house. If they don't go through, I'll kind of give myself out to my parents to get the other house and try and lease this until I can sell it. And then someone else says, OP, I'd suggest fucking with the ghost. Show the bitch you mean business. Burn down the old barn, like straight up torch it. Don't call for insurance or anything. Just be like, hey, motherfucker, I bought this house and I plan on staying here. If you keep effing with me though, I'll burn down your favorite places. Also, the next few nights after that, sleep in a motel. The ghost will probably be pissed. I checked local historical register for something happening in that house in 1933. It is long known that CAPTCHA is prophetic. Someone else says, great. This makes me kind of nervous to move into my new home. My fiance and I just bought a home a few states away. It's an old Victorian and a fixer-upper. I mean, a real fixer-upper. It was a good story, had me intrigued. Also, despite there not being any real big ending, it was good. Thanks for keeping me entertained while I wait to go to bed. And then the OP starts to answer some of these questions, saying, hopefully there won't be a next time. This isn't fake, although I understand if you think it is. He also replies to another comment saying, I really want to cut ties with it and get the fuck out of here. If I'm stuck with it, I might try that, just so it doesn't get taken back. I don't want to fuck up my credit because of fucking ghosts. I'm honestly afraid to leave a tape recorder out. Although L suggested it before, I'm afraid something will be telling us to go die in a fire on it. He also says, I don't plan on putting any more money in this house, and I'm saving up right now to get into the next place. The best I could do is leave my webcam on during the day while I'm gone, and it's so grainy, you'd probably never see anything in it. He also says, I might try it in the morning, but I don't want to listen to it. F and L can if they want, but I don't want to. I'm too much of a chicken shit. I'd do it right this minute, but if I have a tape recorder, it's in the attic. And then the OP finally says, good night and good luck, and finally comments, if I can't sell the place and have to stay here, I might try that. I don't honestly know where one finds a Catholic priest or how F got the rabbi here. Do I just go into a church and ask for ghost help? And that's the last we have ever heard from the OP on this story, but you guys might be going, oh, well, that was a boring story. And I kind of understand that, but once again, this is true 4chan's threads, and I tried to pick some true stories. And to me, this seemed true because a lot of true stories are often not that climatic. You know, they don't have a crazy ending. But I think the ending there was disturbing. I mean, he called the old homeowner, and she's like, someone committed S-word in here, and it's in your closet. I mean, just think about that for a second. Imagine you lived in a house, all this crazy shit's happening, and there's cold spots in your house, and you can't explain it, and there's knocking, and there's tapping, and all this stuff, and you call the old homeowner, and she says someone committed S-word in your closet, and you never knew. And there's always weird shit happening with the closet. I mean, that is just so scary to me, and this just feels like a true story because a lot of the fake stories, they just go for it, and they go on a crazy ramble, giving all these crazy details that just don't seem realistic. But this one just seems eerie, and like the OP said, unnerving. And I mean, it was unexplainable. Who knows what it was? And so that's the title of this video. But I hope you enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed this one. And yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. And just a quick preface before we get into this next story. This story is a lot different than usual. It is not your average scary story I read, and it's a slow burner, but it is so worth the listen. At first, you'll be caught off guard. I do agree the details and the descriptions of some things are a little bit odd, but the story just blew my mind. It is often labeled as one of the greatest green texts of all time, so you'll want to stick around. And without further ado, let's get into The Ballad of Ella. This is my story, B. Be me, 19-year-old college freshman. This was 10 years ago. I had this bro from high school, Pete. We were friends, but not exactly bros. He was a cool guy, and I think I was cool to him. Turns out we applied to the same college and enrolled, going to the same classes, practically spending all of our time together. Away from you, family, with your high school life behind you, things can get hectic. Yeah, you are teenagers with no real problems to deal with, but you still need a friend you can depend on. And we were that friends to each other. Fast forward a couple of months, second semester, we start taking this new class, and there is this girl in the class. Not just us, but every human being with a working PP in the entire campus is losing their shit over her. Ordinary straight girls are ready to become lesbians just for her. I mean, man, wow, what an angel, a beam of light? Do a machina descending from heaven? I have no fucking idea. A value over 10 is a measurement that applies to us, mere mortals. Her beauty cannot be calculated or properly abstracted with numbers, and looking at her is like something you know you shouldn't do. Not because it's creepy or socially awkward or some other shit. It's because you feel like you're not worthy. Not for her, you're not. No, not her. But we were looking. Turns out we first saw her practically at the same time, and we wanted to point her to one another, but we couldn't take our eyes off of her. So we sat in some lousy economy class or whatever and drooled over her for half an hour before I whispered, "Dude, fuck me." And it took Pete a solid 5 minutes before he could simply say, "Yeah." There she was, this 5'9" lady with long, wavy auburn hair and emerald green eyes to die for, and pretty sure to kill for, sitting just a couple feet away from us. Yeah, so, fuck me, was the correct response in that situation. Pick is unrelated random chick. After the class, to this day, I can't remember for the life of me what the fuck it was about. We were already orbiting her like some lousy asteroids stuck to a massive black hole, creepily getting closer and closer to her as she sucked us in, bumping to each other and walking like we were drunk and out of our minds. I don't know what it was. Maybe she realized that we were following her like pervs, or maybe it was something else. Halfway to the cafeteria, she just stopped and turned towards us. We immediately bumped into each other and stopped as well. But her beauty was so miraculous, we forgot to look somewhere else. I remember her gaze. It was like the back of her heads blew open and brains splattered all over the hallway. Those green eyes, man. And she smiled. She fucking smiled. If we weren't healthy, fit males in their prime, we would have died of a heart attack at that moment. We couldn't breathe. She was so beautiful. So there we were, still staring at her, our eyes and mouths wide open. We were in our low, way low 2-digit IQs at that moment. And there she was, in all of her glory. Like I said, 5'9", long wavy auburn hair, emerald green eyes, long curvy and athletic legs, slimmer at the knees, well-defined muscles on her calves and soft but rigid thighs. Her ankles were so elegant, but her tendons were sprained, as if she were a wild gazelle ready to bolt out at a moment's notice. Her butt, I can't call it an ass, not hers. Ass is what girls have. This lady had something else. She had buttocks that required a new definition of the word. They were so firm and so well shaped, you could perfectly calculate for pi if you took the measurement. Her breasts, I don't even have the words. To this day, I'm still searching for the right words, and I will try and describe them later in this story, but I will fail terribly. I can still remember what she was wearing that day. I know what she was wearing probably better than her on the day she wore them. And I know this because Pete knew this. After she looked at us and smiled, just for a few seconds, which felt like an eternity, she turned around again and kept on walking. We just stayed put. We couldn't follow her. Our black hole left us lonely asteroids to the pitch black emptiness of cold space. So after the school, we went to our dorm room with no information about her whatsoever. No name, no nothing. Just a mental image of her elegant stance etched deep into our minds. I was looking at the picture of random women with green eyes and auburn hair on Yahoo. That was the only thing I could do. But none of the images even came close to matching her beauty. Well, Pete felt like he had to do something. And he fucking started searching for her clothes. I shit you not. He was searching for her clothes on Amazon and eBay, and all these fashion and shopping sites neither of us knew nothing about. He started with searching for a skirt, which was this black wool cashmere circle skirt with a playful flare at the bottom, couple inches above her knee, revealing her thighs just a little bit. When he found it, he shouted, "I found it, fuck yeah." And I thought he had found her. But when I saw what he found, which was this, I don't know what brand skirt on Amazon, I was far from being disappointed. I was feeling the same way. We didn't know her name, but fuck if we didn't know what skirt she was wearing. Pete kept going with the search and I helped him. At the end of the night, we knew what flat she was wearing, what shirt. We even knew what brand her red bow-shaped hair clip was. I mean, look, we are straight guys. I figure I'm a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8. Pete is an easy 8 out of 10, pushing 9. We were both fit. We don't have ugly pimples on our faces or anything. We were both very decent. We were not short, chubby. And also, we were not the most popular kids in high school. We were definitely not social castouts either. But that night, we were more gay than a male fashion design student wearing pink Donna Grays and coming out of the closet singing YMCA. And we knew what skirt she was wearing, so yeah. And before we went to sleep, Pete had an idea. That motherfucker had the most excellent idea. He knew he needed an extra something if he was ever going to talk to her, let alone date her. So he decided he should start learning about fashion and use his knowledge as a conversation starter. Meanwhile, I was feeling like I could go to Mars with a new Apollo mission, or save the world from a new regime all by myself, and still wouldn't be able to impress her. I was a hopeless F-slur. Next morning, the first thing Pete did was to enroll in a class on fashion design. Pete didn't know if this tactic was even going to work. Pete didn't know if this magnificent creature would speak fashion with him. But he had hopes. Meanwhile, we were both unable to speak to her. We were a bunch of beta F-slurs, scared out of our minds. But we learned her name from a friend. Ella. Ella was her name. Pete didn't want to waste his chances in leaving a perfect first impression with Ella. Well, the first impression both of us have left with us standing in the middle of the hallway, staring at her like we were a bunch of R-worded perverts. But speaking to her was a different matter altogether. I figured if Pete had no chance of talking to her now, how could I? Besides, Pete was so into zone. I didn't want to compete. Not that I could, or so I believed. Fast forward a couple of weeks. Pete, as a freshman, knew more about fashion than seniors knew about economy in our department. He was spending his nights browsing fashion blogs. Every night, he would come to our room with a list of items she was wearing that day, studying her taste in fashion. Pete told me that this could actually work, since while a lot of the girls on campus dressed like trailer trashes, Ella was always amazing in her choice of clothes. Our room was filled with editions of Vogue and GQ and shit. A couple of friends have seen our stash of fashion magazines and joked about it, so we made a lousy explanation of how they were quality snooking it material and got away with it. One day, Pete woke up and turned to me. "I'm ready," he said, like Neo saying, "I know Kung Fu." I said, "Show her." Anyways, Pete decided that whatever she's wearing that day, he felt like he could intelligently talk to her about her clothes. After the economy class, I wished him luck, and we parted ways. An hour later, he found me. I asked him, "How did it go?" I don't know, man. I really don't know. I mean, I might as well have done great or fucked it up completely." "Why?" "Look, we talked about fashion for an hour." "So you talked for an hour? That's great, man." Damn, we were beta F-slurs. "Yeah, but what if she thinks I'm gay?" I started laughing. Pete had a point. Straight guys don't usually talk about fashion. Certainly not about women's fashion. Suddenly, Ella comes out of nowhere. I froze. Pete looked at me and understood that Ella was coming our way. "Hey, Pete." And I heard Ella's voice for the first time. She had a crackly, deep voice. Kind of reminds me of Scarlett Johansson now. A lot of people don't think that kind of voice is flattering, but if you found me a soprano that sings Agnus Dei, I would have told you, shut that woman up and let Ella sing. "Hey, Ella," said Pete, his heart probably skipping a couple of beats. I remembered now. I got it from Anthropology. I have absolutely no idea what she's talking about. "Oh, thanks." Don't mention it. It's from last season, though. I don't think you could buy it for your sister, but they might have something similar. Oh, well, thank you for telling me, Ella. You're welcome. See you around, Pete. See you, Ella. And we watched Ella walking away from us gracefully until she disappeared in the distance, still looking at her general direction as if we could still see her. Dude, your sister is 7. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know she is. Yeah, I know. Magnificent. A week later, Pete had another idea. In order to not look like a gay couple, he suggested that we develop this manly handshake and establish that we are in fact bros. Like a bunch of idiots, we stayed up all night, working out this complex yet subtle, or so we thought, secret handshake. Our stupidity was at an immeasurable new height. Pete was chatting up Ella little by little every day, but he was afraid of becoming a gay BFF and lose all chance of dating her. So he requested me to approach them tomorrow at some point mid-conversation and apply the handshake. Okay then. After our economy class, I gave Pete some time, then joined them in the cafeteria. As I approached them, Pete saw me coming, excused himself like a true boss gentleman, and we started acting out this ridiculous handshake in unison. I mean, it was absolute bullshit. Hands and fingers everywhere, clicking and fist bumping and doing other various stuff. It was like the douchebag version of Cirque du Soleil. Halfway through, yeah, it was that long it almost needed an interlude, Ella starts laughing her ass off. She was laughing like a crazy person. We freeze. The blood drains away from Pete's face, pale as fuck. We realize that we just fucked up. We fucked up immensely, and we force ourselves to turn and face Ella. She's trying to silence herself, still laughing. Pete and I still holding hands like idiots. She tries to apologize for laughing, but then she starts laughing even louder. We look around and hope that no one other person has acknowledged how dumb we look. Fortunately, no one other than Ella is laughing, but Ella is still laughing. Pete has this is how we die face. I'm all good. Ella's laughter finally dies down, and we're looking at her like rabbits caught in headlights. Guys, I know you're not gay. And she starts laughing again. Pete looks like he's about to shit his pants. And I don't know what it was. Maybe I started losing my nerve. Or maybe it was like a chain reaction to Ella's laughter. I start laughing my ass off as well. That manly handshake started playing out in my head over and over again. And I began to imagine myself doing the handshake, and I realized how absolutely idiotic it must have looked like. Pete starts laughing as well. All three of us are crying at this point. Now people are looking at us like, what the fuck? And that's how I met Ella. We finally sit down. I'm still chuckling like an ape. I extend my hand towards Ella. Hi, I'm Anon. She firmly grabs my hand. My God, her hands are beautiful. Long, slender fingers embrace my hairy man paws like the branches of a delicate flower. She has a very cold touch. Almost freezing, but at the same time, it's such an awakening feeling. I can feel the hairs on my forearm rising. Hi, Anon. I'm Ella. She responds with a warm smile and an incredibly sharp, piercing gaze. Her spellbinding eyes are filled with both an I got you now attitude and an older sister's love I melt. For how long have you guys practiced that stupid handshake, she asks. We start blushing like 5-year-old kids. All night, Pete answers as silently as possible. Ella claps her hands and pops a loud chuckle. I knew it, waving her fingers towards us. You guys are insecure. Pete grumbles. Oh, it's so cute. She puts on a funny face, pouting her spectacular pink lips. I'm losing my grasp on English language right now. Well, guys, I know you're not gay, but you're definitely homophobic. Well, we're not. I try to defend myself futilely. Oh, it's okay, Anon, she smiles. I can understand that feeling. Pete must be losing his mind. He just sits there, trying to find a way to regain his composure. Oh, come on, Pete. I know you feel uneasy talking to me about fashion. Pete looks shocked. He doesn't understand how he could be sidelined so bad. But he tries to make a case, which I assume he has none. It's really okay, Pete. I can sense that you have been working on fashion, makes a finger quote, for some time. Oh, fuck. Our jaws are sweeping the floor. How? Pete mumbles. Seriously, I know about your fashion class in your room full of fashion magazines. Ella winks at Pete. I'm about to lose my shit. Pete looks like he's been shot by Cupid's 50 cal machine gun. He's crushing hard, madly in love. How did you know? I ask, since Pete cannot come to the phone right now. Well, first of all, I have a friend in Pete's fashion class, and also some of your chums were talking about your stash and I overheard them. Pete silently mouths, fuck me. But most of all, Pete, I can see that you are new to the fashion world. Where did I go wrong? Pete must have been losing his hope at this point. Well, a fashionista, how can I put it, must look more fashionable, don't you think? Ella was right. Granted, Pete didn't walk around wearing shitty flip-flops and baggy sweatpants, but he wasn't actually a fashion icon either. Pete looks like he's about to burst into tears. Besides, your fashion sense has no context. A person who is deeply involved in any subject always speaks in some form of context. As Ella talks about Pete's failure, I feel both incredibly sad and incredibly turned on. Maybe I'm not from a family or a place where there were a lot of smart women around, and maybe I was just a dumb, homophobic, or maybe even sexist fuck. Who thinks all women learn about everything in life by furiously banging Ken and Barbie dolls into each other in their childhood? But I'll be damned if this magnificent woman isn't smart. Hey, it's okay, Pete. Ella sees Pete cringing like a puckered behind. I know why you did it. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Pete lines up like someone stuck a needle full of adrenaline into his chest. Meanwhile, I'm lost in Ella's eyes, studying her beautiful face as she talks. So I'm gonna give you a chance. Go ahead. Ask. Ask what? Pete shits the bed. Ella tilts her head and gives him a really face. Pete comes around again, gains his composure like a champ for the first time during the conversation. Well, do you want to grab a cup of coffee with me after school? Ella smiles at him and playfully nods with her eyes closed. I would love that, Pete. And she chuckles. And I sit there like a F-slur thinking of asking, can I come too? Ella is beyond words to me. I feel stupid and powerless near her. Thank you. Pete barely makes any sense. I can't imagine being in his place right now. Getting the green light from Ella after believing that he fucked up so badly. Ella laughs playfully and changes the subject. So we sat there and talked about our lives and how we knew each other for an hour. And I was able to get to know Ella, even if it was just for a little bit. But it was an amazing experience. A couple of weeks later, Pete and Ella were a couple. I've never seen Pete so happy. He was over the clouds all the time. The guy was out of his mind, counting seconds for their next date every time he kissed Ella goodbye. And I was happy for my bro. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel uneasy every time I saw Ella. Ella was still the most amazing woman I've ever seen in my life. Nothing came remotely close to matching her beauty, not to mention her wits. And speaking to her was more fun than I could have ever had, doing anything. And I was trying extremely hard not to fall for her. I owed it to my bro and to myself. Fortunately, Ella came to my help. She introduced her friend Nicole to me. Nicole was the girl in Pete's fashion class, the girl Ella was talking about. Nicole was an incredibly beautiful girl. She was this amazing redhead, 5'6", big soft breasts, nice curvy body, pale blue eyes, cute little freckles on her face. You would think that a beautiful girl like Ella wouldn't be BFFs with another beauty like Nicole. 9 out of 10 times, you'd be right, but Ella had no competition. She was beyond competition. Ella could have been friends with the biggest bimbo there ever was, or she could have been hanging around with a fucking Swedish bikini team. She could have been sleepwalking in her PJs on a Victoria's Secret catwalk at a New Year's show for all I care. No matter the situation, Ella was always the one you looked at first. But yeah, Nicola was a bombshell too, and she was something else entirely. The four of us started hanging out together. Started going to parties, hanging out after school, going to the movies, and slowly Nicole and I got very close. She had an amazing sense of humor, knew a lot about subcultures and shit. Finally, after a night out together, Pete and Ella decided to go to Ella's room by themselves. Turns out Ella's roommate was back at home for a family emergency or something like that, and Nicole and I kissed. Soon after, we officially became a couple. After what felt like an eternity, I wasn't interested in Ella that much. It felt good, not feeling like cheating on my bro. And Nicole was amazing in bed. In all things related to intimacy, she was a dream come true. The fantasies she was into were mind-boggling. The things she wore, stockings, blah, 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 surprised me with wake up, blah, blah, blah. I'm just not going to get into that. Some nights I would think, how the fuck am I supposed to regain my appetite after this? A couple hours later, there she was again, wearing something really good looking, doing things you would lose your mind for, the places we had intimacy, and the positions we tried were pure. Yeah, this gets pretty graphic. I'm going to skip a lot of this. It felt like half of my daily diet was being used for snooking it juice. I'm going to regret saying that. She wouldn't use protection, no sir. Where's the fun in that, she says, and she would always want more and more. Good thing I was fit and young. You can't do some of the things she asked for when you're 29. I would do things, and I couldn't feel my tongue. The girl was a queen. There was no stopping until she said enough. Wow, this goes on and on. I was scared shitless if there would come a time when I'm simply not enough, but she was loyal and honest as fuck. Never even flirted with the other guys, let alone cheat on me. I was really skeptical at first. It's a complete opposite of what you would expect. I somehow raised the issue with a delicate, yes, curious manner. I was treading lightly, didn't want to offend her. You're mine, Anon, and I'm yours, she told me. Nothing will change that until such a time comes that we both decide otherwise, she would furiously declare. If there ever was a woman made out of a wife material, Nicole was the ultimate prototype. Her understanding of a relationship was beyond belief, and her connection to me was unbreakable. She was so incorruptible. She would straight up hit the guys trying to chat her up in her faces. You come near me again, and I swear to God, I will use my entire boyfriend like a retractable baton and fuck you in the ass with him. That's an actual fucking quote I heard her shout at some poor kid. Holy shit. And there I was, standing like a beta F-slur who just won the lottery. My diamond, hard, whatever, pulsating to her commanding voice. Jesus. Then she kisses me like there's no tomorrow, finds an empty room in a house full of partying people, hangs my sock on the doorknob, and does her thing. Yeah, that was Nicole in a nutshell. So I've never imagined there would be trouble at the Paradise, but come summertime, something else happened. My dad asked one of his old friends in LA for an internship position on my behalf. His friend accepted me to his firm, and while everyone was having a great time, I was supposed to work at the accounting department of this design office in LA. This meant that I wasn't going to spend my summer satisfying Nicole, or doing anything fun for that matter. Before she went to the airport, Nicole kissed me as if we weren't going to see each other again, like ever. You don't forget who you belong to, mister, she told me with tearful eyes. I won't, Nicole. I promise. Man, the love and care this girl had shown me was something else. Even though I told her numerous times that I loved her, and I meant it, I had this feeling that my love for her didn't even come close to what she felt towards me. You take care of yourself, you hear? And she left, hesitantly walking backwards to her bus to the airport. Pete had already gone home previous weekend, so I was all by myself, walking around in this college ghost town, on my way back to the dorm, wanting to pack my stuff ASAP and get ready to my flight to LA. And there she was, walking towards me. Ella. Hey, sup, Anon? She greeted me with a warm smile. Hey, Ella, I just sent off Nicole. Ah, you guys, she cried, right? With a snappy laugh. I know she cried. Ha, well, you know her, right? She loves you, Anon, that's why. Ella reached out and stroked my arm, showing that she cared. For the first time in quite a while, I suddenly felt a jolt, a rush. It was like the time when I first saw her up close. As her cold hands brushed my skin, my pupils dilated, like the first sip of a morning coffee. A surge of a small dose of adrenaline hit my body. I quickly broke out of her spell. I had to. So, where are you off to, Ella? Oh, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Off to see my parents in LA. What? We might be on the same flight. That was the most S-word neutral thing I could think of at that time. You serious? What are you doing in LA? Ella asked with a delighted curiosity, her big green eyes glimmering with excitement. I have this job my dad arranged for me. I'm not exactly going there for a vacation, I pout. Don't worry, Anon. I'll keep you company. It will be fine, I promise. Cheerfully reassuring me. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could say anything. Oh, look at the time. I gotta go now, but hey, see you in LA, if not earlier. She winked at me. She waved and started walking in the other direction. After mumbling some non-intelligible verbal expressions like, hey, yeah, what? Oh, I waved at her and watched her disappear around the corner. And as I was trying to make sense of what just happened, Nicole's teary-eyed face kept coming into my mind. I felt like a complete asshole. What the fuck am I so excited about? I mean, Ella is my bro's girlfriend. She's best friends with my girlfriend. What am I thinking? Why am I suddenly feeling awkward again? I tried not to think about it and started walking away. The next morning was even harder for me. We were on the same bus to the airport, and when it was time to check in for our flight, we were side by side. Naturally, you can't ask to be seated elsewhere when the person you're trying to avoid is right next to you. I couldn't believe that I was thinking about being seated elsewhere too. Ella was not only a friend, she was the only person I had to think of almost as a sister. I kept texting Nicole to make sure that I was okay, reminding myself of who I belonged to. I was scared because it wasn't helping at all, acting like everything is all right. I boarded the plane with Ella. After chatting for a bit with Ella, she fell asleep. After some time, I did too. When I woke up, her head was on my shoulder, and my head was on hers. Her fragrant hair was all over my face. She smelled of vanilla and berries. Her gorgeous scent was so enchanting. I started getting the strongest stiffy of my life. I was unsure about what to do. Do I slowly back off? Do I keep leaning against her head and savor the moment? What the fuck am I thinking? Why is this even an issue? Now, I know there must be a lot of you out there calling me a beta F slur, but if bros before hoes doesn't apply here, then where else? The only thing I was able to do was to raise my head out of her hair and sit upright as best as I could. I couldn't bring myself to pull away from her. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, she mumbled in her sleep and put her hand on my chest, embracing me as if she was sleeping next to Pete. Her beautiful hand was lightly hanging onto my shirt, her cold fingertips gently grazing my bare chest. This is torture. Pete's voice is ringing in my ears. I love her, man. I fucking love her. The time he told me at a party, watching Ella from the other side of the room. With an admiration and love I haven't seen before on any man's face. Then I remember Nicole again, and the discernment and the loyalty she has displayed time and time again in the face of temptation. I felt like shit. Concentrated, WC clogging brick of shit. An excruciating hour later, she woke up. She blinked her eyes rapidly as she tried to sober up, and yawned and stretched. I was losing my mind to the sight of her delicate body, as every muscle on her body vibrated and contracted. I was trying to force myself to look away, not notice her, but I couldn't. She looked at me with her sleepy green eyes. Oh, sorry, Anon. I get very untidy in my sleep, she chuckled. Huh, no worries. I tried to match her chuckle nervously. Shortly after that, we landed. Her parents came to welcome her. She introduced me to them. They were nice people, really warm and welcoming. Her mom, after learning that I was going to be alone in LA, invited me to their place. I kindly declined their invitation, telling that my father has already rented an apartment for me. Well, next week, you must at least come have dinner with us then, Ella ordered. Okay then, deal. I accepted her offer with a million questions and ideas racing in my mind. Shortly after we parted ways, I called Nicole and talked to her for an hour, trying to remind myself of who I am, and texted Pete, telling him about Ella and I were on the same flight to LA. I hated myself for feeling that an explanation was necessary. Hey, Pete, don't worry, buddy. My thing down there, my pee-pee, wasn't fully erect the whole time. She was sleeping on my shoulder, sort of thing. It got hard only when she started stretching her muscles. It's aight. Fuck. I settled at home. Met people at work. It's boring, but it's okay. I'm in LA. Lots of things to do. Lots of free time when I'm not working 9 to 5. And it's only part-time, so I only work 3 days a week. A week later, Ella picks me up from work, and we go to her house like I promised. And everything went better than expected. Her parents are really cool. Lots of drinking, talking, joking around. She has a younger brother, Jake. He is 11. He is a nerd, but he is always handsome in the same way Ella is beautiful. Fucking little man is on his way to becoming a motherfucking 10 out of 10 alpha. I start talking to him. We hit it off really well. I start playing video with him in his room. Ella joins in. I'm like, what? Turns out Ella is a hardcore gamer. Then the feeling returns once more. Ella is sitting between me and Jake, and I'm trying to hide my stiffy under a N64 controller, feeling like I'm cheating on Nicole again. I start drooling as she kicks her asses in Mario Kart. Oh well. Ella rubs Jake's head, and she turns to me and winks. I don't know what you guys were expecting. I forget how to speak English as I see her smug face next to mine, her piercing green eyes, her sharp, pointy nose a couple inches away from me, her cheeks red like apples, the rush and excitement of the game, tiny drops of sweat rolling down on her delicate neck. My mouth is wide open. She starts laughing when she sees my dumb as fuck face. I only play adventure games, Monkey Island and such. I try to bail out. Oh, is that right, Mr. Thurpwood? Ella teases me. Oh, MFG, I'm about to die. Her mom calls us for dessert and coffee. I stay for another hour. Then her dad drives me back to my place. Next week, she called me and asked if I want to hang out. I was afraid of how fast I responded yes. She showed me the sights. We went to her favorite place, eating ice cream, hanging out in cafes and shit. About a month and a half into my stay in LA, I met a couple of her old friends. I could easily see that some of her high school boyfriends were still in her love with her, losing their minds over how lucky they are to see her once again. Some of them even eyeballed me before Ella told them that I was just a friend. Just a friend, she said. And for no reason at all, I felt as if my heart imploded. What's wrong with what she said? Yeah, of course, I was just a friend. It wasn't like I was friend-zoned or anything. She had a boyfriend. I had a girlfriend. So I was just a friend. But I was heartbroken nonetheless. We decided to go to the beach the next week. So next week, 5 of Elle's friends and I were at the beach. 9 out of 10, 10 out of girls with thongs all around us. Everyone is like, who gives a shit? I was the only fuck checking out every piece of ass around us. Ella was wearing those loose summer pants and an old XL white shirt. We find a nice spot, get settled. Then Ella starts getting undressed for the beach. And every person within a 50 feet radius starts looking. 10 out of 10 girls start cringing. I can see how jealous they feel. Men are, I don't even know what word that is. Then I say, fuck it. I'll have to see her body eventually. No escape, and I look at her. Just a pair of jet black bikinis. In them, the most unquestionably beautiful woman there ever was. Her wavy auburn hair streams to her broad but willowy shoulders. Sharp sunlight is glimmering on her bright green eyes. Her face is already tanned. Reddish spots are formed over her soft cheeks, her petite pink lips, and her sharp, small diamond chin, both moisturized by tiny droplets of sweat. The elongated and tender tendons on her neckline flows to the most beautiful and deep jugular notch, surrounded by her sharp clavicles. And then I see them. And then he starts talking about her chest area. Not going to get into that. They stand at attention, he says, amused by the incompetence of frail gravity. He gets into her chest a little bit more, and he's really, really admiring her. And he says, and I admire her chest like they have seen the most beautiful work of art ever created. Then I look down, see her belly, and she's really lean and fit, and that's just the most age appropriate, just not weird way to describe it. Like, this guy really gets into depth with all of this, like, Jesus. And he starts to talk about her crotch area, and you can imagine where that goes. And he says she's tanned, and Jesus Christ, I'm just keep reading this and just worse and worse words. But he is really, really loving on this girl, as if you already can't tell. And then let's continue. My eyes were fixed on Ella. Ella looks at me. She leans in with a funny smile on her face. Her breasts come closer to my face than ever before. You are staring, Anon, she says calmly while giggling. My face turns into a Mexican tomato plantation. She walks by me towards the ocean, looks back with a smile warmer than midday sun. You coming? And runs into the lukewarm water while bouncing her perfect body. I'm in a minute. Yeah. I wasn't about to display the biggest tent of my life in front of everyone. She voices a snappy laugh and starts backstroking away from the beach. I sit there and start reciting the multiplication table as if I was already with Nicole in bed, trying to delay the inevitable. Moments later, I join her. Sorry about that before. I apologize sheepishly. Haha, don't worry about it. You should have seen Pete's face when he first saw me in underwear. And we're back to where we started. Good thing my tent is now underwater. I try to speak, but all I'm doing is keeping my mouth open without saying anything. Ella is laughing hysterically. Are you serious, Anon? So serious how? Are you seriously thinking of me in my underwear right now? It comes and goes. What the fuck am I saying? Ella laughs and splashes water to my face. Come on, underwear boy, swim. She starts swimming. I have nothing else to do but follow her. A few moments later, she stops swimming and turns to me. Hey, did you, call Nicole? You guys talking? Yes? Buzzkill. Yeah, why? Good, you keep doing that. Then you can imagine me in my underwear all you want. Okay. She chuckles like a prankster and starts swimming back. My mouth was like a keyboard with coffee spilled all over it. I followed her back to the beach. I spent the rest of the day thinking about Nicole, thinking about Pete, and thinking about Ella. I really didn't have to think about Ella since she was suntanning her gorgeous body next to me. Before everybody went home, Ella asked me if I wanted to hang out with her next weekend. I accepted, naturally. After I went home, my dad called, told me to get ready for a trip. What? Yeah, apparently I was supposed to go to Hong Kong. Turns out my dad is more connected than I previously believed. I had just a week left to spend in LA. Then it was time for Hong Kong. After I spoke to my dad, Pete called. His voice was all fucked up. Told me that Ella broke up with her a week ago. Oh. I switched to bro mode and started calling Ella a bitch and whatnot. Dude, stop, he said calmly. She was right. This wasn't going anywhere. How? What? Look, Anon, I have nothing that I can offer to her. Pete started explaining. He told me how Ella was smarter than him and how it wasn't about relations or intimacy or being an alpha and all that shit. Basically, like everything else about her, Ella was not exactly your usual sorority girl. She was in her own alpha omega fuck you club. And Pete had nothing more than 4 months worth of fashion class and a few dirty jokes to show for an admission. Anyways, thought you should know, man. Take care. And he hung up. I was terrified when I realized my first thought was, now what do I do with Nicole? And my next, what the fuck am I supposed to do in Hong Kong? Next week, I decided to ask Ella about what happened before we went to the museum. We meet, kiss, and hug. Sup, Anon? She's cheerful as usual. Sup, Ella? So, Pete, he called me. Her head becomes apologetically heavy. Sorry for not telling you, Anon. Didn't want you to think less of me before speaking to Pete first. Why? Ella looks at me, feeling stuck between her friendship with me and my friendship with Pete. Wasn't working, Anon. Things don't always work out. What did Pete say about me? Only good things. What did you tell him? Me? I was just trying to be a bro, I guess. Ella pouts. Sorry for putting you in that situation. This is the first time I've seen Ella unable to drive the conversation. She looks way too submissive. I feel bad. Hey, look, it's okay. It's not my place to say anything. I try to comfort her. Ella looks at me, almost waiting for my approval. Then I say, let's move on, shall we? Besides, we have a date. What? Ella blushes. I realize what I've just said and how it might have been so easily misunderstood. Okay. She doesn't push it and saves me from my own demise. We get inside the Natural History Museum and start wandering around aimlessly, without talking. Couldn't tell her that I was leaving for Hong Kong 2 days from now. Both our minds are elsewhere. We get to the prehistoric section, see the dinosaur skeletons, and no, they don't walk. Then we get to the early humans or some other stuff, I don't know. I don't remember why, but we stopped in front of this Neanderthal skull on display. We just look at it. Kind of reminds me of something. You know, this looks somewhat familiar, I say without looking at Ella. Ella doesn't say anything at first, and then she busts out laughing. She loudly cracks an evil laughter in my face of the fucking hall. She looks at me with a funny evil face, with a crackled, badly impersonated manly voice. I am a powerful demonic force. I am the harbinger of your doom. Let me hear you scream in terror. I'm melting right now. I remember. She gives me a warm smile and starts laughing. I remember why that skull looks so familiar. She's fucking doing Murray from fucking Monkey Island 3. My life is complete. Everyone is looking at us like, WTF is wrong with these people? I get so excited my hands start shaking. Oh, I think I did it a bit too loud, she whispers as she keeps chuckling. You play MI3? I ask her, stammering. Oh, I love it, Anon. She grins. I figured you would remember Murray, you being the adventure gamer and all. I have nothing to say. At that moment, Ella stopped being a crush I could hardly admit to and turned into my life's goal I have no idea what to do with. We start talking about Monkey Island, then Full Throttle, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, all LucasArts games, old school adventures. We were cracking jokes, impersonating key characters, acting out funny moments. It got to the point of singing theme songs. That's when we realized we were sitting next to a prehistoric animal in the middle of a museum, talking about weird games and such like nerds. Security is giving us funny looks. We laughed about it and decided to leave. It was getting late. Sun was about to set. Hey, Anon, come home with me. Have dinner with us again. Ella grabbed my arm and asked me cheerfully. I'd love that. And we went to her house once more. Her parents gladly welcomed me to their home. Jake was in a summer camp or some shit. During dinner, all we could talk about was games and anime, comics, the whole nerd 9 yards. Her mom and dad were giving each other smirky looks. I didn't care. I was losing my mind. Ella, the perfect girl. Ella invited me to her room, and that was the first time I've seen Ella's room. Anime posters on the walls, cute bed sheets with girly flowers and stuff, a whole bookcase full of vidya, her neatly folded clothes everywhere, a full repertoire of fashion Pete studied to understand for a whole semester, a cute and girly elegance, and a hardcore and tomboyish geekdom. The best of both worlds, if there was ever such a thing. I'm at a loss for words, I declare with my mouth wide open. Ella chuckles and playfully punches my shoulder. Shut up. What were you expecting? Wall-to-wall posters of some boy band? Huh. No, I love it. I look around with a huge grin on my face. Good, now I'm gonna beat your ass in Mario Kart again. Sit down. As she forcibly seats me on the floor and in front of a small TV, huge amounts of cute hearts gush out of all of my bodily orifices. Ella goes over to Jake's room and brings the N64, and we start playing. This is heaven. She kicks my ass in Mario Kart again. We switch to SF. She kicks my ass yet again. Next, we try to split screen 007, and guess what? She kicks my ass again. She fires up the PS and starts showing me MGS. I've never played MGS until then. Yeah, don't judge, okay? She starts telling me about the story, going crazy excited, shows me the controls and starts watching as I fumble around, laughs at my stupidity and ineptness every now and then. I play and play, lose myself, immerse myself in the excellence of MGS, then I pause the game and realize that she has fallen asleep with her head on my shoulder. Her sweet vanilla and berry scent filling my lungs once more. She looks peaceful and happy. I quit the game and put down the controller. I gently embrace her exquisite body, putting my arms behind her back and under her beautiful legs. The thin veneer of her skirt rolls back, revealing her thighs. I carefully carry her to bed, tuck her in, just look at her, and appreciate her unbelievable beauty for a moment. It's 3 a.m. Her parents must already be asleep. I don't have any way of returning home. I turn off the TV and the lights, grab a pack of neatly folded shirts and use them as a makeshift pillow, and curl up on the floor. It's hard to fall asleep. The floor is too uncomfy. I hear shuffling behind me. I figured she must have been turning around in her sleep. Then I feel her hand on my back, then over my shoulder, and she rests it on my chest, pulling a thin sheet of blanket over both of us. Her small feet play around and curl up next to mine as she spoons me. I grab her cold hand and press it firmly against my chest. She mumbles and plants her face to the back of my neck, and I fall asleep, madly in love. The next morning when I woke up, she was still sleeping. During the night, we ended up facing each other. When I opened my eyes, I found myself looking at her angelic face. Her hair was all over me. Her hand was still holding onto my shirt, like the time it was back on the plane. I could feel her breath on my lips. I wanted to stay there. More than anything, I wanted to lay next to her forever, and I wanted to kiss her so much. But all I could think was Nicole's face. I carefully reached for my phone in my pocket. Nicole left me a text. Hey you, wanted to surprise you before you go to Hong Kong. I'm in LA. Call me when you wake up. I love you. Smiley face. Oh shit, I go pale. My mouth dries up. My heart starts beating to a fight or flight moment. I gently put Ella's hand down and back off without waking her up. I grab my things and exit the house without anyone noticing. I call Nicole. She tells me to meet her on Venice Beach. Grab a bite to eat on the way. Coffee to wake up. The moment I see her, I realize the mistake I've made. My hair's all messed up. I'm still wearing yesterday's clothes. I didn't even brush my teeth, and my entire body smells like Ella's perfume. It's too late. She sees me and starts running towards me and jumps in my arms. She digs her lips into my mouth, holds me tightly, starts kissing me. Then she slows down and then completely stops. Her hands and arms lose their grasp on me. Slowly, she pulls away. She gently pushes me back to take a better look at me. She sees the guilt and fear on my face. Her pupils dilate. She starts turning red. Her eyes fill with fury and anger like nothing I've seen before. Her right hand pulls back and flies into my face. It lands perfectly. My ears start ringing. My vision is blurred. She doesn't talk. I don't have anything to say for myself. I just stay there with half of my face completely numb. Unable to face her. Unable to look her in the eyes. She slowly turns around and starts walking. Looks back. You come in? She looks at me with tear-filled, mad eyes. I obey and start following her. We sit on a bench overlooking Venice Beach. We sit there for a few minutes before she finally asks me, "Did you sleep with her?" She doesn't look at me. No. Did you kiss her? No. She stops for a moment. I realize what's coming and it's too late. She turns to me with a face full of tears of anger. You're in love with her? I can't say anything. I just sit there, my head as low as it can go. For how fucking long, Anon? Her voice trembles. How long? She asks again, barely audible. I don't know. She hesitates for a moment and then starts talking again. I should have known. For the past month, you were all Ella could talk about, Anon. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wake up to the shock of this revelation. She talked to you about me? I ask her, with a skeptical and messed up face. Yeah. She opens her eyes wide, sarcastically. Can you believe that? You became her number one friend, her confidant, her BFF. She violently finger quotes her snappish remark. I don't have anything to say to Nicole. And I can't be angry at her for getting close to you, Anon. She stopped. But you. She gets close to my face and puts her index finger sharply to my chest. You should have known better. Tapping my chest with her finger. Answer me, Anon, she whispers. Answer me. What? I turn to her. She jumped back with a surprise. This was the first time she has seen me scream at anyone, let alone her. What do you want me to say, Nicole? That I love her? That I care for her? That no matter how I feel about you, I can control how I also feel about her? That even when you and I were just friends and Ella was with Pete, I couldn't help but feel a strong desire for her? Nicole didn't talk. She just stood there and watched me talk with a heartbroken face. What do you want me to say, Nicole? What do you want me to say? That the first thing I felt was relief when Pete told me that she broke up with him? Okay, she whispered and stared into the distance. We continued to talk, getting angry at each other at times, but it was more upsetting than vexing. After an hour of furious argument, we were tired. Even when pissed off, Nicole didn't hold back her love for me. She got close to me and put her head on my shoulder, and we started watching the sunset. You know what, Anon? She spoke kindly, like a whisper. There isn't enough intimate tricks in the world to keep you away from Ella. I froze. I felt like a sharp object has been pierced through my chest. And there isn't enough small jokes, bouquets of flowers, or boxes of chocolates that Pete can come to her door with. She sighed, so he can hold on to Ella. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. And it's all right, Anon. No matter what we do, you guys were made for each other. She spoke as she gave it into reality. So you go ahead. I told you that you were mine until we both decided otherwise. And we both decided otherwise. You know that. I sat there, with Nicole's head on my shoulder, staring blankly into the crowd of people on Venice Beach, knowing that there's no amount of rights I can make to fix the wrong I did her. The person who loves me so blindly, so vigorously, that even in the moment of her defeat, she still wanted what was best for me. Just do one last thing for me, she whispered. I turned my face to her and kissed her with a passion like I never have. She held my face in her small hands and broke our bond. Go, she said, trying to hold back her tears. Go before I change my mind. Go. She started to cry. Holding her hand, I got up. I hesitantly started stepping away. Our arms stretched and reached their length as our fingertips grazed each other and broke away. I started walking backwards, looking at her, realizing what I have done, feeling like shit. Nicole wasn't looking at me. Her head dropped. The palms of her hands were trying to hide the tears. She was quietly sobbing. I gasped for air and forced myself away from her, trying not to think about it. Running away like an asshole, I must have walked for 3 hours, not knowing what to do. It was getting late. I finally made my decision. I hailed a cab and gave the driver Ella's home address. I arrive at Ella's house. I approach her door, not knowing what to do. I ring the bell. The door stops. My heart stops when I see her. She lowers the cell phone from her ear, looks at me. That was Nicole. She shakes the phone in her hand. Her beautiful green eyes are bloodshot, tears running down her face. She closes the door. Ella, I breathlessly shriek. I turn my back to her door. I start walking and then collapse. I start crying like a bitch. This is just too much. First Nicole and now Ella. The door quietly clicks open again. The afternoon sun casts a shadow over me. The shadow eagerly waits. What did she say to you? I can barely speak. That you love me more than her? You stupid fuck. A cold hand grabs my collar and pulls me with force. I stumble and walk to Ella's door, following her stern pace. Tears and snot on my face, ugly as fuck. As I pass through the doorway, she turns around, violently slams the door with a flick of her hand, and pins me to the shut door with force, stuffs my face with her lips. My heart is beating like a jackhammer. She just stays frozen. Her lips nailed to mine, her chilled hands hanging from my collar. Her intense kiss gently becomes tender, and she stops kissing me. Clumsily wipes my wet face with her hands, sporadically chuckling her heart out while crying tears of joy. You look like shit, she laughs nervously. I smile and laugh. Come on, you need a shower. She drags me to her bathroom and gives me fresh towels. I take a shower for an hour, trying to calm my nerves, trying to make sense to this calamity. I take way longer than usual, knowing that when I get out, I'll have to face her and have a talk. I finally get out and wrap myself with her towels. Go to her room. Ella is in her PJs. Her hair is wet. She must have had a shower too. She's sitting on her bed all curled up, holding onto her legs. She has a deeply concerned look on her face. I sit next to her and stare at the wall, expecting a million questions. She simply says, "Go ahead. Say it." I don't understand. I mean, say what? Say it. She tells me again with a calm voice. I love you. Good. She puts her hands on my face and her lips on mine and gives me the warmest, most gentle kiss I could have imagined. We fall back to the bed. She embraces me. While her freezing hands caress my skin like ice, her hot, soft lips brush against my face like a velvet cloth. I hold her tightly. She opens her arms and lays back, presents herself to me with an innocent smile on her face. I take my time and study with her. I don't want to rush anything. My parents are gone for the day. We're all alone. She sings playfully. And then you know where this is going, and I'm not going to read this anymore because this is a lot of physical stuff, and yeah, they get freaky, majorly freaky. And I'm not reading this because we're just not that type of channel. This is a sad and scary stories channel, and so yeah, geez, I'm just reading through this, skimming through. Nope, not gonna read this. But apparently they love it. Obviously, this guy's in love with her. OP's in love with her, and Ella seems to like him. I can't tell off of Ella, but then it was almost dawn when they woke up. Ella woke up with me. I have to tell you something, I told her. She looked at me, scared and upset. I have to go to Hong Kong for 2 months. Today. I won't be able to spend the rest of the summer with you. Whatever she was expecting, hearing this news relieved her. She sighed and planted a passionate kiss on my cheek. It's okay. We'll see each other in school, she whispered to me softly. After all, I have you now. I couldn't have been happier. Hong Kong seemed like a punishment after everything that has happened, but I knew Ella would wait for me. Ella sent me away, convinced me that if we spent even more time, or if she would come to LAX to see me off, the distance and time would be even harder to bear. I agreed. As I was dragging my feet to leave her, I kissed her so much she had to physically push me away, giggling with a sleepy face. Go now. Go or you will miss your flight. I went home, hastily packed my bags, and left for the airport. All I could think of was her. The cab driver had to ask me where to like 3 times. After I landed and got settled in Hong Kong, we started talking on Skype. It was new back then and the connection was shitty, but it was way better than nothing. Every day we would talk, sometimes for hours. There was so much time difference. I was almost an entire day ahead of LA, but we made it work. Our intimacy was not limited to just intimacy in real life, and our friendship was more than just ambiguous flirting. The things we shared, the moments we lived, even though they were digital and thousands of miles apart, I was still in heaven. A month later, I came home from work one day, and there was no response to my calls. I figured she must be busy, or out, or something else came up. Didn't think much of it and went on with the rest of my day. Next day, same thing. Well, unless you are a seriously paranoid person, you don't think of worst case scenarios until your buddy calls you. Didn't remember how I responded to that. I still don't. I only know what Pete, Mom, and Dad told me. Turns out, I dropped the phone and was unreachable for an hour. Don't know what happened in that hour. Then they say that I called my folks. By then, Pete told them already, and they knew I wasn't going to be able to make my way back on my own. As I was speaking to or screaming to Mom, Dad was already buying plane tickets. I didn't realize my mom was crying on the phone, knowing her son was in so much panic and she was unable to help me. I was screaming so much, my voice was all but gone. At some point, my dad picked up the phone, trying to calm me down. Years later, I asked him once, just once, what happened that day. Never seen a man that white as he told me what happened. How terrified he was over how I was feeling. I asked him because the only thing I could remember was Pete telling me, "She's gone. She's gone." I talked to Pete one more time before Dad arrived. That I do remember. You go numb after so much pain and start behaving like a robot. He knew I was going to be at the ceremony with him. We talked about things no one wants to know. But you just have to know. Like what happens to a car traveling at 60 miles an hour when it gets rear-ended by another car. Starts spinning and stops when it wraps around a telephone pole. There was nothing anyone would want to look at. No open casket. Just a box. While her family was burying Ella, I was on a plane back to the States. Didn't have the power to go to LA and be there with her family. Didn't want to go back to college and be all by myself. I just wanted to go home. A year has passed since Ella's death. Mom and Dad were trying to play it cool. Pete was the only one keeping me sane. He too was affected by Ella's passing. But he was stronger. He didn't love Ella the way I did. Nicole was keeping her distance, avoiding me as best as she could. On the anniversary of her death, I decided to visit Ella's grave. Got on a plane to LA. I still remember the first time I walked through those cemetery gates. It's never easy to visit the dead. I found her and stayed there for an hour, just crying, not knowing what to say. I'm not a religious person, and I don't believe in the afterlife. I had this feeling inside me that no matter what I said, she wasn't there to see or hear. After a while, a boy walked up to me. Her brother. Young Jake, too, came to visit her sister. We hugged. "You should come and visit my folks, Anon. They'll be happy to see you." I accepted his kind invitation. When we arrived at their home, the air was thick, filled with sorrow. Her mother smiled when she saw me, held me in her arms as if I was her own blood. "Oh, am I so happy to see you," she cried. They were relieved they didn't have to be alone that day. Ella's father was already half drunk, but he was joyful when we started talking about Ella. Jake was sitting between his mom and dad. They wouldn't let go of his hands the entire time, drawing power from knowing that they were not alone, and that Jake is still here. After talking about Ella, reminiscing what little time I was able to spend with her, her mom showed me into Ella's room. The room was left untouched. Nothing was changed since I've been there more than a year ago. Even her neatly folded clothes were still on her chair, her video archived, her anime posters on the wall. Her mom opened a drawer and took out a CD case and a letter and handed them to me. "I believe these are for you, Anon." She put them into my violently shaking hands. She kisses me on the forehead and left the room. I sat on the bed in which we had the chance to spend a single night together. A single night. I looked at the CD case and immediately burst into tears I was holding back before. Crying my eyes out, I started reading her letter. The letter she couldn't send to Hong Kong. Pick related letter and the CD case, and we'll get into those in just a moment. After I read the letter, I was in the fetus position on her bed, crying. The love and the loss were too much. Someone slowly sat next to me, and I felt a familiar hand on my face. I put my head on her lap while Nicole caressed my hair and calmed me down. "I'm here," she whispered, and hugged me as she too quietly cried. And then the OP posts 2 pictures, one of the curse of Monkey Island and the inside, and then a picture of the letter. And let's read the letter that Ella was supposedly going to send to the OP. It reads, "I hope you're doing well in Hong Kong. I miss you, and I'm cheerfully assuming that you miss me too." Smiley face. "But surprise, I got something for you. Unfortunately, this was the only copy I could find. It's a pirated version I got from ex-Bulgarian guy on eBay. He works just fine. If you get bored and tour longing becomes unbearable, imagine yourself in the Caribbeans, and I'll help you save Ekin from the curse. Love from LA. Your hooray, Ella." And then the final post from the OP reads as follows. "Next semester, Nicole and I got closer. She stopped avoiding me, and we became friends again. She understood what I've been through, and although I've broken her heart, she knew I didn't mean to. She knew how much I loved Ella. She knew the love I felt for Ella didn't mean I didn't value her. 2 years later, we started dating again. Moved to Chicago together. Another 2 years after that, we got married. And I slowly forgot about Ella. While organizing old stuff at our house, I came across Ella's letter and the MI3 CD case. When I started feeling bad, she convinced me to write the story down so I could get it off my chest. I don't want to read it," she said with a sad face. "It'll be too much for me, but you have to write it down. Her love and care were heavenly. You need this, Anon." I accepted. Last night, after I finished writing my story, Nicole convinced me to frame Ella's letter. I looked at her. I was almost about to cry. She gently held my face in her hands. "It's good to remember, Anon." And she planted a tender kiss on my lips. She was a good person. You loved her and she loved you. I don't even know what to say. I framed the letter and put it on my nightstand. We got under the blankets on a cold winter night. We cuddled. She embraced me and placed her head on my chest and softly whispered into my ear, "You're mine, Anon, and I'm yours." And as I've said before, she was almost asleep, with an amorous smile on her face. Until such a time comes we both decide otherwise, nothing will change that. And I fell asleep next to the woman I loved, embracing the woman that loves me. And this is the end of my story. And I can kind of see why people call it one of the greatest green texts of all time. I mean, it's just such an emotional roller coaster. It starts out with him loving her, and then it ends out working out. And the day they do the deed, he leaves, and then she dies in a horrible car accident. Just wow. And it just feels so real to me and true, because I mean, most people during a traumatic time can't remember the details, and during the details he couldn't portray it that well. So it seemed very true to me, very authentic, and very sad. But just wow, that's just a crazy story. I mean, this was not a usual Snook scary story for you, but it's a green text classic, so I thought I had to read it for you guys. And I found a interesting post of someone saying, taking a look at the Ballad of Ella, true story or fake. And so we're going to get into that for everyone who thinks that's a fake story versus true. So let's get into this post. Someone says, "In case you have not read the Ballad of Ella yet, I highly recommend you do so. Now, if you did, you might wonder whether or not that story truly happened. While I cannot say so without certainty, I did try my best to find out, as there didn't seem to be any information in that regard. Let's start with what information we have. The original post was from 2015, and Anon said 10 years ago when he was 19 and a freshman. It might be he is referring to the start of the story, freshman year being 10 years ago, or the second semester, i.e. the start of the story being 10 years ago. Depending on that, the year Ella died would be either 2005 or 2006. Pete had taken fashion classes for 4 months. Summer came, Anon and Ella spent about 2 months together in LA. At one point he writes, that night, Ella wasn't a couple months old friend. It's safe to assume the time frame of the story is about half a year. That puts Ella's death somewhere between the end of June and the end of August. She died in a car accident in California, somewhere in or around Los Angeles. As Anon seemed to lodge so far from Ella's place, he had to be picked up and dropped off every time with no other option. We cannot be 100% sure it was Los Angeles. Finally, we cannot be sure that Ella was her real name. Even though it was on the letter, it might be short for Elizabeth or other similar names. What we were looking for, a young 18 to 21-year-old with a possible nickname Ella who died in a car accident in 2005 or 2006 in California. Give him props so far. This is crazy detective work. And then he continues saying, looking for Los Angeles car accident, death 2005, or fatal car accident Los Angeles 2005 teen yields no success. Narrowing the search to articles from the years 2005 to 2006 doesn't turn up anything useful either. Neither does including all of California. Browsing obituaries for the year 2005 will show that no Ella under 35 died. Neither did one in 2004, 2006, or 2007. Given she might not actually be named Ella, I started looking into death records of people aged 18 to 21 who died in California. Lo and behold, about 200 people between 18 and 21 found their untimely death in 2005, but not one of them bears a name you can shorten to Ella, save for 2 Michelles, who died on the 10th of August at age 18, but was cremated and had no brother, and said she had a half-dozen sisters, which already rules her out. And another Michelle who died end of July 2005. Problem with her is that she doesn't appear anywhere else. No car accident news, no obituary, nothing. Also, the story makes no mention of a birthday, which is important because this Ella would have had hers a week later. All that and the fact that she was only 17, a bit too young to go off state to university, makes it unlikely this is the story's Ella. Death records for 2006 yielded about 250 kids between 18 and 21 who died. Only one of them could have had a name that would fit Ella. That person was, last name was Elizabeth, age 21, who died on August 29th in a car accident. Though it was no perfect match, in the story, Anon was told that Ella had died or been rear-ended by another car, while this Ella was hit by a wrong-way driver. It can, however, very well be said that she tried to evade the oncoming car, which led to it hitting the rear, spinning her into a telephone pole. I'd count that as rear-ending. Did I mention this was in the interstate? Ella was hit at 60 miles an hour. Either way, both accidents ended in a way where an open casket doesn't seem like an option. She also had a sister, not a brother from what I found, which is a detail too big to get wrong. Conclusively, it can be said that the story might actually be true. Unlikely, yes, but there is a person who would fit Ella's age, time, and the cause of death. Personally, I thought it was fake until I went back and took a closer look at the time the original post was made, which made me question if the events really took place in 2005. The person fits nearly all of the criteria so well that even though Ella as a person seems impossible, I cannot deny the possibility of the story being true. I doubt it though. And so, I mean, a lot of you guys were going to speculate in the comments either way, so that kind of shortens it. Someone did the research. But I didn't mean to, jump the gun so fast. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Ella's death or speculate on it, but I just thought it was worth adding so you guys didn't need to do it in the comments. But very different story than usual. I mean, it was more like a romance novel for 95% of it. So did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not enjoy it? What were your guys' thoughts? I just thought it was a very good story, and I thought it was worth the read because it was just so different than usual. I mean, it was not a sad story or not a scary story per se, but it was definitely a sad story. And I just thought it was a great story, to be honest. but her death just came out of nowhere and was so crushing. And the OP was a great writer. I mean, the dialogue was great. The descriptions of the girls was a little bit weird, but what can you do? It's 4chan after all. But yeah, people classify that as one of the greatest green texts ever. So comment down below if you haven't heard it before. I've never read it before, so that was new for me, hopefully new for you. And if you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, join me on Patreon, follow me on Spotify, follow me on Instagram, all that jazz. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos on the channel, so check out those. I appreciate you so much. Comment down below your thoughts on the video. I read every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this is Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Right now, you're watching this video on a screen, and that screen is innocent, or it can be a doorway to something darker. One wrong click, one stray curiosity, and you could find yourself trapped in a corner of the internet that's so twisted, so grotesque, and so horrifying, it changes you forever. Cult leaders who live stream their own delusions, rescue videos that are anything but rescues, and blogs written by monsters who believe the world owed them forgiveness. Today, we're opening doors most people scroll past and leaving no rock unturned and finding the worst corners of the World Wide Web. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into some horrifying internet rabbit holes. The fifth nail. According to one myth, the gypsies crafted 5 nails for Christ's execution, not 4. The 5th nail was made to pierce his heart, but the gypsies kept it hidden. In some stories, the women are punished, and in others, they are rewarded. This 5th nail is said to have once been an existing religious artifact with special healing powers. Its existence today is somewhat questionable, unless, of course, you consider the philosophical symbolism. The quote I just read, though it seems harmless, is anything but. It's an excerpt from one of the most disturbing pieces of online literature I have ever read. A collection of blog posts by a sick, demented criminal. And although normally the blog is very difficult to find, I scoured the internet and finally got my hands on it. A harrowing view into the mind of Joseph Edward Duncan III, American serial killer, on his infamous 5th Nail blog. Joseph Edward Duncan III was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, on February 25th, 1963. His father was a military man on active duty, so the family moved every year or two, all across the United States. He had many siblings, and for the most part, had a good early childhood. Although he claims it was awful, his siblings insist it was a good home. In 1979, his parents decided to separate. His older sisters moved out on their own. His younger brother went to live with his father, and Joseph, alone, lived with his mother. Now, very little is known about his childhood from that time forward, but we do know about his actions, because Duncan, when living in Tacoma at the age of 15, held a 9-year-old boy hostage at gunpoint and did unspeakable things to him. That was his first criminal offense that we know of. The following year, he stole a car and was sent to an all-boys group home for juvenile offenders called the Jesse Dyslin Boys Ranch, which, by the way, this boys ranch could be a whole video by itself. Very problematic institution, but that's not the topic we're covering today. While he was there, he admitted to a therapist that before the age of 16, he had brutalized an estimated 13 younger boys by various different means, including binding their hands and feet before carrying out his sadistic, perverted acts on them. I'd like to reiterate that I said estimated, as in he wasn't sure of an exact number. Estimated. He was released from the boys' home in 1980, and in that same year, he broke into a neighbor's house, stole their guns, kidnapped another preteen, and did the same shit he did to the other estimated 13 boys. So yeah, this guy was a monster. And from what I know of him, he was always a monster. After this final attack at 17 years old, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He served 14 of those and was let out on parole in 1994. Duncan settled in Seattle, where he tried to keep his head down. He spent 2 years as a free man doing unspeakable things we'll discuss later. Then, 2 years later, in 1996, he was caught violating his parole by smoking weed and was again in jail. After several weeks, he was released again under new probationary conditions. After his release, unbelievably, he violated parole again and was rearrested again and was finally released in 2000 at the turn of the century. This time, he wanted a whole new start, so he moved to Fargo, North Dakota to be closer to his mother and adult siblings. But Duncan had some resentments. After all that, all of his sick crimes, leaving behind 14 victims in the wake of his sadism before the age of 16, he felt he was treated wrongly. Duncan believed that he shouldn't be judged for his crimes, and without a platform to speak his mind, in 2004, he started making blog posts. He called it Fifth Nail. Here is an excerpt from his first ever post, edited for decency, which I'm gonna say was incredibly difficult. January 4th, 2004. Just found out that a 5-year-old girl went missing from Chisholm, Minnesota on June 14th, 2003, this year. I did not even know until today that this happened, so I tried to figure out what I was doing that day, since I'm always afraid of getting accused when something like this happens. You might say that finding out about the girl missing is the most proverbial last straw because of all the other recent incidences in the news lately, especially regarding missing people and the resulting intensification of the persecution of perverse criminal offenders. I've decided to start this blog as a sort of check and balance of where I am. This is for my own safety. I figure it is just a matter of time before I am falsely accused of some crime or another. I already had the police at my door telling me some women downtown were waving my picture around that they printed from the internet, accusing me of harassing them for a date. The visit was very intimidating and not friendly. I was warned that I was being watched as a known perpetrator of perverse crimes. The visit made me consult an attorney for advice. He told me there was nothing I could do unless charges were filed. I feel like a southern black man, just wondering when the lynch mob is going to show up at my door. His paranoia, it turns out, was correct. Remember that 2-year period where Duncan was free before, being arrested 2 more times? Well, turns out the police suspected he wasn't keeping his head down in that time frame. They believed his crimes had only gotten worse. And while Duncan was blogging about his woeful existence as one of the most disgusting human beings I've ever had the misfortune of learning the name of, the police were piecing together his latest sadistic crime. Now, before I get into that, I'm going to read one more excerpt from his blog. There's about 2 years of regular entries, and most of them are absolutely vile. And frankly, I don't want to read any more than I have to. So just to get a clear picture of this man, here's another entry for you from his infamous online diary. And viewer discretion, because this is one of the more insane ones I found. February 2nd, 2005. I committed a perverse crime when I was very young. I was sentenced to a perverse crimes program for adults where half the men in my treatment group sat and fantasized about me. After 2 years, I was a senior member when the state therapist paid a surprise visit to my mother's house and propositioned her, saying it would help your son in the program if you cooperate with me. When she told me about it, I quit the program and was sent to prison, where, accordingly to at least one official report that was written before I was sentenced, because of his appearance and age, he would likely be mistreated by other inmates if sent to prison. True story. I thought I would only do a few years and get out not having to be around such evil people who represent the system. But because of hysteria, I ended up spending over 12 more years in prison before finally being awarded parole. All my psych reports say I am a low risk. I was just a kid acting out of confusion over my own experiences. And studies show conclusively that my type of offense is rarely repeated. And yet almost 30 years later, while I have no parole, nor have I ever committed a new crime, the police insist on knocking on my door several times a year, and sometimes in the wee hours. Check that I still live here. I have no privacy at all. Anyone in the state, country, even world can find out where I live, what I look like, and what I did when I was a kid just by typing my name on any web browser. This does not only hurt me. If that was all, I could accept it because what I did was bad. But it hurts my mother, my family, my friends, and even my neighbors who thought I was a great guy until they find out. Then they are afraid of me. It hurts society because it scares people into thinking every strange person is a suspect, and at the same time it deceives them into thinking the government can make them safe by telling them about the bad ones. Even the Fargo police website admits few convicted, perverse criminals ever reoffend, so some of the more ignorant people in the world will read this and think they deserve it. I call these people ignorant because they don't see the hurt they are causing. More children, more victims, just because they are afraid to admit their own secret desires. I cannot express to you all how much I absolutely, to my core, fucking despise this man. The fact I just had to speak those words out loud disgusts me. But it's important for you to know who this man was. Irredeemable scum. One of the worst people I've ever written about. Bar none. And the self-proclaimed innocent Duncan was about to go on a killing spree. May 16th, 2005. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The grown family are spending the night together. They were a tight-knit household, a loving family. The mother of the household, Brenda, then 38, was asleep in bed with her boyfriend, Mark McKenzie. In the adjacent room slept her kids, 13-year-old Slade, 9-year-old Dylan, and 8-year-old Shasta. It had been a peaceful, uneventful day. And tonight, they were all resting easy. But not for long. At approximately 11 p.m., Joseph Edward Duncan broke into the home. Brenda woke up and rushed into Dylan and Shasta's bedroom. Someone's in the house. She gathered the kids with her boyfriend, and they ran into the living room, trying to escape. When they encountered Duncan, dressed in all black, carrying a gun, Duncan tied up the family. At some point, he pulled Dylan and Shasta outside, leaving them alone on the lawn. Though immobile, inside, the sound of sickening thuds could be heard as Duncan bludgeoned the boyfriend, mother, and eldest son to death. The two surviving children, Dylan and Shasta, were kidnapped. For 6 weeks, Duncan took them to campsites and did unspeakable things to them. After 5 weeks, he accidentally killed Dylan when a shotgun misfired. After the death of her brother, Shasta was nearly killed also, but she convinced him not to by using his family nickname, Jet. Eventually, the two were found at a Denny's in Shasta's hometown of Coeur d'Alene. Shasta is the only surviving member of the grown family. Joseph Edward Duncan III was arrested and convicted of murder for the nighttime massacre of the grown family. But that's not all. Remember that 2-year parole period? Turns out he spent that time on another, earlier killing spree. He was found responsible for the deaths of Samiaho White, 11 years old, her half-sister, Carmen Kubayas, 9 years old, and Anthony Martinez, 10 years old. The jurors who sentenced Joseph Duncan to the death penalty had to be offered counseling for the horrific evidence shown on trial, including a 33-minute video of him physically attacking one of his victims. He died at the age of 58 from brain cancer. The Fifth Nail blog is an x-ray into the mind of a horrific, disgusting vermin known as Joseph Edward Duncan III. Like I said, there are 2 years of blog posts, but honestly, you might want to skip this rabbit hole. There's a ton of information, a ton of description and detail on his Fifth Nail blog, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters in this story are the victims. All of them. Young and gone way too soon. I hope they can rest easy knowing this man can't hurt anyone else ever again. Animal exploitation. 5 years ago, a video was posted to YouTube titled "Rescue the Pitiful Little Dog Falling Down the Drain, Screaming for Help, Nobody Cares." In the video, a man is walking down an old, craggy sidewalk on his way to work when he hears a strange noise. He stops by an open crack in the ground to listen, and what he hears is a puppy in distress. Somehow, it got stuck in an abandoned storm drain. Thankfully, there's no grate, and the man is able to rescue the little dog. He crawls through the weeds, deep under the sidewalk, and pulls out a dirty little pup, crying and looking confused. The video has tens of thousands of views, and the channel behind it produced dozens of similar rescue videos, puppies in distress, dirty, mangled, broken, and of course a heroic figure swooping in to save them. Across all their content, the channel has amassed millions of views and hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I watched the video in absolute horror, not because the puppy was in danger, but because something about it didn't feel right. These types of videos are unfortunately very common on all of the popular video streaming platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. At first, it seems perfectly innocent. A group of kittens drowning in a river, a puppy with a broken leg, and an unwitting hero swooping in to save the poor, desperate creature. These videos garner incredible attention, get shared by every grandma with a smartphone. But the terrifying reality is, a lot of these videos are staged. When we watch Rescue the Pitiful Little Dog, there are clear signs that this video isn't genuine. Firstly, the man is already recording. He walks down the street on his way to work without a care in the world, when he just happens to stumble upon a puppy whining in a crack in the ground. In fact, he doesn't even stop to find where the whining is coming from. The camera just glides down perfectly to a single half-an-inch wide crack in the sidewalk, almost like he knew exactly where to look. And then all of a sudden, there's a second camera. Someone else is recording him rescuing the puppy. Not only do we never see this person behind the camera, I thought our hero was on his way to work. Who is this person? Is it a coworker? Well, in a way, it is. You see, oftentimes these videos are coming from economically poor countries, and with the surging popularity of animal videos in the early 2000s, people wanted a way to make some money, and nothing gets as many shares, likes, and comments as animal rescues. Unless you're a robot, watching an animal being saved is going to make you feel something, and that's for the vast majority of people, and you might just want to share that feeling with others. Because of this, animal rescue videos aren't just popular, they're lucrative. Millions of views can equal hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on certain video sharing platforms. But how often does one find an animal in distress? Well, unless you're working for animal control, not often. I'll ask you this: how many times have you encountered anything like this in your own life. An animal in distress, tucked away under a sidewalk or lost in a storm drain. I bet most people could count on one hand the number of times, and truthfully, it might be zero. So if you're living in a poor nation, and if you want to start a business farming animal rescue videos, how do you do it? Do you wait around hoping to find an animal in distress? No, these people don't wait for danger. They are the danger. They purposefully endanger animals behind the scenes, and once the cameras are rolling, they can swoop in and save them. Here are some other video titles I encountered across many of the still active animal rescue accounts. Rescue the dog tied on the motorcycle. Rescuing a paralyzed abandoned puppy. Rescue 3 poor puppies in a plastic bag. These are not accidental discoveries. They're not spontaneous rescues. They're by design, each of them planned, staged, and recorded to pull at your heartstrings, garner your sympathy, and make a whole lot of money. But it's not just puppies. There are whole hosts of other species being tormented online. Puppies, monkeys, chickens, anything with 4 legs and a heartbeat is being exploited online right now. The most common format is animal abandoned by its owner, which accounts for about 30% of all fake rescue videos, but there are many more that are popular. Formats like an animal is almost attacked by a predator, where a baby animal will be put next to a snake and saved at the last second. Or animal saved from beneath rubble, where the people making the videos literally bury these poor creatures alive, and this sick trend isn't going away anytime soon. I found a Reddit post from 5 years ago listing 44 accounts that were most definitely allegedly producing fake content. Many of them have since been shut down or have rebranded amidst backlash, but some are still alive and kicking, despite the dangerous, disgusting, inhumane content. And there are so many other channels. Once you start looking for similar content, similar rescue videos, it just goes on and on. Anytime one gets shut down, 2 more seemingly take its place. And the horrible part about it is you can never be sure what's real and what isn't. I just recently saw a video of a monkey drowning in a river, getting rescued by a guy on a boat. And I have no idea if it was staged or not. And that's a disturbing thought. That really, there's no verifiable way to sift between the good and the bad. Everything is suspect once you kind of learn this. The type of animal exploitation, fake rescue videos are a rampant issue on all social media platforms. But what if people don't want to see an animal saved? What if they hate that animal so much they'd like to see it hurt, injured, maimed, even killed? Well, that's when we get into another type of animal endangerment, and a group so disgustingly evil it boggles my mind. The monkey haters. In 2024, a documentary titled Free Minnie was broadcasted on the BBC. It tells the real-life story of Minnie, a female long-tailed macaque, and how she was saved from her years of brutal captivity. In 2022, a woman named Kapetinich had just finished a long day of work, was browsing through recommended videos on social media when she discovered a cute monkey video. She watched it, liked it, and went to bed. The next day, more monkey videos, this time in funny costumes, doing unnatural tasks, playing, dancing, juggling, what have you. Before long, her feed was nothing but monkeys, and the content slowly became more and more disturbed. Monkeys getting slapped, sprayed with water, and one monkey being physically brutalized. That monkey was Minnie. The lady ended up in contact with another man, Dave Guptar, who had also taken note of the monkey haters in their horrible, inhumane videos. They shared their knowledge and became something of a team. They tried to find similarities between videos, But the more they watched, the further they dug, the more despicable it became. Monkeys weren't just being injured. Not anymore. Some were being killed. And the people watching, the sick audience of thousands, were loving it. But one monkey appeared in more content than all of the others. Her name was Minnie. She was just a baby. And she was seen in countless videos being hurt ruthlessly. Seeing this poor, innocent baby being hurt and exploited for entertainment was too much to bear. They had to do something. Together, the duo approached animal activist Nina Jackal. She knew about Minnie, but she didn't know the full extent of what was happening. When she saw the content being produced on social media, she was both horrified and enraged. Nina began her own investigation. She discovered that every once in a while, in the comments, people were offering to pay the man who was hurting Minnie, and the response was always the same: add me on Telegram. Now, for those of you who don't know, Telegram is like the Tor browser, but for private messaging. It's meant to be completely private and keep your messages hidden, even from service providers. She followed the breadcrumbs and discovered that there were entire dark web forums dedicated to buying and selling content on Telegram. Much worse than anything available on social media: drownings or flat out murder. And this wasn't one man creating these videos. There were multiple across nations who made a living torturing innocent animals. I mean, how messed up is this? One of the largest brokers of these horrible videos, the self-proclaimed king of brutality, was a man from the United States called Mike McCartney, a 48-year-old former motorcycle gang member of the Aryan Brotherhood, and card-carrying Confederate sympathizer. He had taken a liking to the monkey videos, especially Minnie. He spent his days selling videos, disturbing videos among customers, and he made a good amount of money doing it. But even he wasn't at the top of the food chain when it came to monkey haters. Mike McCartney operated on a Telegram channel called Ape's Cage, ran by the mysterious Mr. Ape. Mr. Ape ran the communications between buyers and vendors and created some videos himself. He would ask for ideas from the community, what tools to use. But his most popular video involved a blender. Absolutely horrible, disgusting, morally reprehensible human beings. But while most monkeys died, Minnie survived. Minnie lived to see her first birthday, and for that, she was a celebrity amongst monkey haters. She was the sadistic trophy of their community, said Mike McCartney. The Babe Ruth, the Marilyn Monroe, the Elvis. In this demented little circle of ours, that was Minnie. Eventually, by looking for commonalities in the videos, they were able to identify some of the perpetrators. Police agencies in multiple countries were contacted to track down and arrest these individuals. And one by one, they were all taken offline. By tracking the flow of money after each arrest, they eventually found Mr. Ape. And although we don't know his name, we know he was a Florida man in his mid-20s, and he had been running his sick Telegram since the time he was in college. And Minnie's owner was finally arrested. For Minnie the monkey, we don't know exactly what happened to her over those years in captivity. At least I'm not looking for those videos because I don't want to know personally. But we do know her injuries at the time of her owner's arrest: broken jawbone, missing teeth, bruises, scars, and intense psychological trauma. Today we know that Ape's Cage has been disbanded. The broker, Mike McCartney, is facing heavy prison time, as well as other distributors. And many of the monkey hater content creators have been arrested and charged. But just like the fake rescue videos, this all boils down to one major point. This content isn't dead. At the end of the day, these two stories are just the tip of the iceberg. While social media platforms attempt to regulate this type of content, sometimes it slips through the cracks. And as criminals get smarter, it gets harder and harder to stop people like this. For both of these stories, the rabbit hole goes much deeper than just this information. It's basically endless. You could spend days going deeper and deeper into the sadistic, secretive networks of animal exploitation rings online, but at least for me, I won't be going any deeper anytime soon. Love has won. Amy Carlson was born on November 30th, 1975 in McPherson, Kansas. She was a child of divorce, splitting her time between Kansas and Oklahoma City. Amy was described as smart from an early age. She did well in school, always had good grades, sang for the school choir. But while her academics were thriving, behind the scenes, her home life was falling apart. After years living with her father, an abusive stepmother, the pain became too great. And so Amy moved in with her mother, eventually relocating to Texas. Here she wanted to begin her new life, but above all, she wanted love, affection, the all-American nuclear family. But Amy had trouble keeping relationships. She'd meet a man, they'd have a child, and then they'd break up. By the time Amy was 30 years old, she had been married 3 times and had 3 beautiful children. She supported them by working as a manager for McDonald's, but she wasn't happy. She neglected her children, and after her 3rd child was born, she began to distance herself from the family unit she fought so hard to create. Why? Well, around this time, she started getting involved in New Age religion, which I'd categorize here as a more radical form of spirituality. Think holistic medicine, crystals, and tarot, but for Amy, she took it to another level. She believed in multiple dimensions of spirituality, like metaphysical dimensions, soul reincarnation, the healing power of loving energy, which, to be fair, some of this isn't very strange. Many Eastern religions are built on these same beliefs, but her beliefs were evolving. Online, she met a male called Amarith White Eagle. See what I'm saying? And he convinced her that she was divine. Amy wasn't some mortal working at McDonald's. No, she was Mother God, a being that had been alive for as long as time. Someone that had reincarnated into many bodies. The Hawaiian god Pele, Cleopatra, Jesus, Harriet Tubman. She claimed that in a past reincarnation, Donald Trump was her father, and before that, Elvis Presley was her son. Eventually, in 2007, she had become so convinced of her otherworldly spiritual powers, she abandoned her life, went no contact with her 3 children and her family, and disappeared to Colorado to be with her muse. Together, Amy and White Eagle would form a new religious group. And when I say group, I mean cult, called the Galactic Federation of Light. Now, before I continue, I want to make this abundantly clear. We're going to hear a lot about Amy throughout this story, and she does some weird things, some irresponsible things, and some downright dangerous things. But I want us to remember, this is a sick woman. She was influenced by White Eagle, who I'm sure was influenced by someone else, and all of them were influenced by a whole lot of drugs. So I'm not discounting the gravity of her actions. I'm just saying she was just as much a victim as she was a perpetrator. Even her daughter, when later interviewed, wants us to remember Amy as a human being who was sick, not just a crackpot cult leader. And I think it's important to make that clear. Moving on, she moves to Colorado, and together with White Eagle, they create a website. Weekly, they post about their doctrines, taking the moniker Mother and Father God, while their partnership in the Galactic Federation was purely managerial. Behind the scenes, they were heavily romantic. And in 2009, they posted their first YouTube video. Truth is a brilliant symphony. The message is very difficult to follow. Amy Carlson's Mother God hosting convoluted talks about truth, God, angels, the universe, energy, and atoms. Now, over the course of many more videos, we begin to understand her evolving beliefs in better detail. Amy Carlson was 19 billion years old, a deity called Mother God, and had birthed all of creation. Father God was her second-hand man, and sometimes her lover. She accessed the fifth dimension via contact with the Galactics, a communication of dead celebrities like Robin Williams and Whitney Houston, who served as dimensional spirit guides. She had been reincarnated 534 times, and the job of her current incarnation was to lead exactly 144,000 people to salvation in her mysterious fifth dimensional heaven. And soon enough, the group had its first passenger, Miguel Lamboy. Miguel was the first person to support the Galactic Federation, and he took a special interest in Amy and the inner workings of her spiritual vessel. He would become the group's logistics director, managing the finances. The minutes of her first follower began a long cycle for the Galactic Federation under Amy's control. She would frequently eject people who didn't fit her doctrine or those who didn't agree with her, and this complete control became very toxic and dangerous very fast. When the group joined TinyChat, a website where you can create custom chat rooms accessed by random people, the Galactic Federation of Light began to develop a larger following. And this pattern of Amy's controlling, dictatorial nature began to rear its ugly head. Here's an excerpt from a Redditor who had a first-hand account with the group early on, and the post reads as follows. I first met Amy back in 2013 through the Galactic Free Press and TinyChat platform. Back then, LHW did not exist yet, but the cult-like recruiting tactics were being developed. Miguel Lamboy, who went by Michael Silver, had an administrative presence along with Amy and a few others. Many of us would join online together nightly to share spiritual videos, music, meditations, etc. Honestly, we weren't there because of Amy. We just enjoyed the interactive platform. It was a fun hangout with like-minded people from around the world. We initially tolerated Amy and the first Father God's controlling mechanisms. They would temporarily block you or kick you out of the chat room if you said anything that was contrary to their thinking. But the most interesting and engaging conversations and interactions almost always took place once Amy had left the chat for the night. I had a few one-on-one Skype encounters with Amy. Sadly, I saw right through the con that was developing. Amy even invited me to join her in Dunsmuir, California, which I declined. In late 2013, as the Galactic Federation scene started to devolve into a more cultish setting, I went out and started my own spiritual TinyChat. About 20 or so people followed me over there from GFP. Amy and her followers would daily try to get us to rejoin her. As per this user's story, Amy began to develop a new personality. Gone were the days of innocent spirituality and happy-go-lucky values. No, her rule was becoming stern and absolute. If someone didn't align with her beliefs, she expelled them or blocked them, ostracized them from the community. But that was just online. Around this time, she gained a second follower, Andrew Profasi, who wanted desperately to worship Amy. The two began a romantic relationship, and before long, Amy expelled Amarith White Eagle, the first Father God, and replaced him with Andrew. Just like that, the man who started it all, the one who had filled Amy's mind with delusions of grandeur and elevated purpose, was abandoned by Her Majesty, his Mother God, and the delusion he created developed a life of its own. With the help of Miguel Lamboy and her new, more obedient Father God, the group began to expand. People from across the country made the migration to join the goddess reincarnate. People we'd later see on live streams and in community videos, Hope, Aurora, Faith. Together, they traveled from Colorado to Oregon to California, spreading their ridiculous gospel to anyone that would listen. The desperate, the defunct, the lame, and the lonely. A small convent of lost, gullible souls to poison with her doctrine. But she couldn't do it with the same old ideas she developed with White Eagle. No, she wanted a fresh start. Though the same spiritual hierarchy remained, with Amy at the top of the pyramid, the optics had changed, and the Galactic Federation of Light became the now infamous, fully formed Love Has Won cult. Amy implemented new rules for the group: no drinking, no smoking, a strict dietary plan, and an even stricter sleep schedule. Members of Love Has Won were only allowed to sleep for 4 to 5 hours a day. In many videos, followers can be seen falling asleep as other members attempt to shake them awake, but they scarcely do. The group called this spiritual discipline, but from the outside, it began to look more like torture. These types of strict rules are common among cults, frequently cited as brainwashing tactics. Followers are more likely to be obedient if their freedoms are revoked, and their reliance becomes upon the group itself. If you wanted to join Love Has Won, you had to leave your family completely. These tactics amassed them a group of approximately 15 to 20 who lived with Amy, and whatever Father God was present at the time, moving from state to state. And because of their recent expansion, they needed more money, and they made it selling holistic medicine online, including colloidal silver. Now, colloidal silver is typically sold for its healing properties. At least, that's what it would be sold for, if it had any healing properties. In fact, colloidal silver has no bodily purpose, no recognized function, isn't an essential mineral, and when consumed, it does nothing but wreak havoc, inside and out. Consistent consumption is considered dangerous, and although it's technically legal, the CDC does not condone its consumption. That being said, people continue to sell it for its mystical, spiritual, non-existent healing properties. The group also made many claims to improve people's health without the use of meditation. Love Has Won promoted their ability to pray away cancer, chronic illness, depression. Of course, selling false remedies and prayer cures will ultimately garner the attention of the public. And before long, Amy and her followers were facing heavy backlash. But not just for their snake oil sales, they also publicly held beliefs in many conspiracy theories, ones that, frankly, tend to piss people off, believing that most American tragedies were hoaxes staged by the government's lesser energy minions. Needless to say, people have never and will never resonate with these extreme claims. And for those cities and towns hosting Love Has Won, they didn't enjoy having a cult in their community to brainwash young, feeble minds into joining their ranks. In 2020, Amy and the Love Has Won group briefly moved to Kauai in Hawaii, where she publicly claimed to be Pele, the Polynesian goddess of volcanoes, fire, and creation. Shortly after their arrival, locals began to protest. It was a hostile, angry environment. This random white woman came onto their property and proclaimed herself as one of the most revered deities in their culture, and the native Hawaiians were not having it. They feared, like so many others, the cult would attempt to indoctrinate their friends and family too, which of course they did attempt to do. Protesters began lighting driftwoods on fire and chanting prayers around the rental property the group was staying in. As the days continued, the protesters grew less patient and more violent. They began throwing rocks and eggs at the windows of the property. Group member Lauren Soares, who I referred to earlier by her chosen name, Aurora, captured video footage of the attack and the resulting broken window.
It got so bad, the mayor of Kauai had to come and broker a negotiation between the two groups, eventually leading to the departure of Love Has Won from the island. And just like that, the group had returned to Colorado. In the year that followed, Amy's presence online became less and less frequent. Witnesses noticed her health was declining. She was getting thinner, smaller, quieter. Something was clearly wrong. But Amy sought no solutions to her obvious medical issue. As the weeks turned to months living with this illness, she became paralyzed from the waist down, and her skin became blue. As her health declined that December, on New Year's Eve, Amy had a conversation with her sister over Skype, who noted that Amy looked awful. Amy, in response, told her sister that she had cancer. It was the first time the pair had spoken in many years, and little did her family know, it was the last time they would hear from Amy ever again. In early April of 2021, the group relocated to an RV camp in Mount Shasta, Northern California, attempting to find new footing in a different area, but were asked to leave due to overcrowding. After this, they made their final migration back to the Love Has Won mission house near Crestone, Colorado. On the journey, the group made a chilling Facebook post stating, "She has ascended," and the Love Has Won website was taken offline. In late April of 2021, Miguel Lamboy, head of finance at Love Has Won, contacted the police, saying that something awful had happened to Amy. When police arrived at the mission house, they discovered the unthinkable. Amy wasn't just dead. She had been mummified. Judging by the state of decay, she had died sometime during the trip back to Colorado several weeks earlier. The group had wrapped her in a sleeping bag, tied it with Christmas lights, and covered her face in glitter, a final makeshift shrine to the empty vessel of their mother god. When asked what it was like transporting the corpse from California to Colorado, without any way of stopping the decomposition, the group responded, "You could smell God everywhere." But how did she die? Well, the corpse was blue-gray in color, and a photo taken just a little before her death showed her emaciated blue-gray body, just barely clinging to life. Amy Carlson died from complications as a result of taking large amounts of colloidal silver. The same remedy she had peddled to countless others was the thing that killed her. 7 members of the group were charged with gross disrespect of a corpse, spending only a couple of weeks in jail before the charges were dropped. And Miguel Lamboy, the man responsible for the group's success, disappeared with the remaining $300,000 in the Love Has Won accounts. Today, the group is fractured. Group member and live streaming coordinator Aurora abandoned the original YouTube channel and created a spiritual successor called 5D Full Closure, which continued to post videos until August of 2025. Several other members have started popular social media accounts or businesses, but none to this day have reached the infamy that Love Has Won garnered. And I hope for the sake of others, they never do. But what I just covered isn't even half the story. There are so many more details we couldn't include, even with the full treatment. Hundreds of first-hand accounts, thousands of hours of video. There's actually a great documentary by HBO about it, but even they didn't have the runtime to discuss every detail. Needless to say, this rabbit hole goes deep. In the depths of the Love Has Won madness, seemingly has no end. And alright guys, that wraps up some horrifying internet rabbit holes. What did you think about today's video? I thought these were horrifying rabbit holes, to be honest. These were depressing, sad, and just so horrible. I feel so horrible for all the victims involved. Comment down below what you thought about this video. Leave your feedback down below. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Follow me on Spotify. Follow me on Instagram. all that jazz. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos on the channel, so please check those out. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.